This conference will now be recorded.
So hello everyone, welcome to our day 17 in our GCP Cloud Architect training. So last week we had seen the introduction part of Cloud SQL, which is a managed service where you get MySQL, Postgres, and Microsoft SQL Server options. And we had provisioned a MySQL instance, and in my local laptop, I had a MariaDB, uh, an open source version of the MySQL instance. So where we got a dump of our MariaDB and transferred it into Google Cloud Storage using GSUtil and also with MariaDB. So the script which we used was something of this sort. We're using MySQL dump. I got the dump from a specific database, use GSUtil to transfer it to or upload it to Google Cloud Storage bucket. So we had stopped at the stage last week. We were supposed to do the migration or get the dump or import the data into Cloud SQL for MySQL. That's where we were supposed to do. We had stopped it. So today we'll continue with that. So, and I have not kept my Cloud SQL instance running. I've deleted it. So what we'll do is we will first create a Cloud SQL instance. Uh, and it's going to take around 6 to 7 minutes. By the time it comes up, we should make all the necessary changes in our system. Okay. So last week we just did half of it. Today we are going to continue with the remaining part. So captions. How do I get that highlighter? There's a new thing which they have done. Yeah, L. Yeah, this is the one. So let's just do that. So for that, I'll go to my Cloud SQL instance where you don't see the instances running. I'll create one. Before I create one, I wanted to show you on the networking piece. So we have not looked into the networking, but when you look into the networking, it has a small connect to our Cloud SQL instance. Go to your VPC and VPC peering. We'll talk about this in detail in our networking class, but just a small information. Now, when I create a Cloud SQL instance, we have seen a Cloud SQL instance can have an internal IP address and an external IP address. Last week we had seen it, and we did not provision it with internal IP address because we did not create a VPC. Remember, so we wanted to see the serverless features of App Engine Standard, Cloud Functions, and Cloud Run. So we had explicitly deleted our default VPC. So I have recreated it. Oh, I see a 25th one. So how many regions did we have, folks? How many regions did we have in GCP when we
20,
started?
23.
24.
Oh,
24. Now there is one. So which indicates if you go to the bottom, there's a new region coming up, so that's an indication. So I don't know whether there's any announcement done, but the new region is going to be US Central 2. What is that? We have to figure it out. So it could be something new coming. So last one was Jakarta, recently added, maybe today, I'm not sure. So maybe look for the announcement from Google. Before Google announces it, we will be able to know it. So a 25th region is added, so which is US Central 2. What is that? I need to see that. But a new region is going to come, is what it's an indication. You can use it if you want. So maybe today or Monday they may do an announcement. Before they do it, we can know. This is how you can easily figure it out there's a new region or not. So this VPC is created, and once we enable our Cloud SQL instance with internal IP address, you will see a connection appearing between two networks. What is peering? We'll talk that in our networking class, but there's going to be an entry in this page is what I wanted to set the context now. Now let me go create a Cloud SQL instance. Exactly like what we created last week, except one more additional feature we are going to enable, that is internal IP address. So I'm not going to go through the explanation because we have already gone through the explanation. So I'm just going to create one. So Cloud SQL batch 6 demo, and if you want to use the password, auto-generated password and keep it in secret manager, we can keep it. And I showed you last week itself how you can keep the secrets in the secret manager. What we can do is we can use the existing secret and add it here. So for example, if I just go to my, or let's generate a new one. Let's generate a new one. Cut this. We want a very strong this thing. Cut this. So this is our password. So what I will do is, because passwords will be changed, so what I will do is go to my secret manager and make sure I create a new version of this. Create a new version of it. Last week we created a version, secret manager entry called as MySQL credentials. So if I just click on this, you'll see version 1, and you can see the last week's password which we created. Again, a strong password. We don't want to use this. We want to use a new one. So create a new version and disable all the previous versions. So this is a good practice. You keep changing your passwords regularly. Good. If I just verify it whether it's there, yes, it is there. Good. Let's use the latest version, MySQL 8.0, and I wanted it to be in Singapore, the closest to me, US Central to London Central. Okay, US Central to Europe Central to is not yet showing up. It's okay. The new one, I just thought of looking for the new one. Okay, Singapore, and we are going to have a HA, high availability. So we are going to have our primary master in Singapore A and our failover replica in B zone. So A is our primary and B is our secondary or failover zone. Now by mistake, if I make it as A, it's going to throw me an error. Primary and the secondary cannot be the same. Then the whole purpose is defeated. So you need to have a failover in a different zone. So, but in the same region. So that's the stuff. Then hide those details, go up, sorry, go down, go to the configuration. We don't need a very powerful machine like this for our demonstration purpose. So I can have a very lightweight standard 1 VCP 3.75 GB of RAM. And the storage, what's the maximum storage Google Cloud Storage can, sorry, Cloud SQL can take, folks? We had talked about this, a very important concept also from the exam perspective. So what's the max storage you can have? uh, storage folks, not the vCPU and memory. I'm asking maximum storage, the volume, 30 terabytes. That's correct, Vivek. So beyond 30 terabytes you cannot do anything. That's the max. That's the max you can go. The max is 30 terabytes. If I try to do even 30, more than 30 terabytes, it's going to throw me an error. That's the max. So this is very important, folks, from the exam perspective, because they may have a question where they specifically mention the volume is 50 terabytes. Then you cannot use Cloud SQL instance there. Okay, thank you, Vivek. So Warsaw is the 25th one. So before they announce it, I don't think so there's any announcement if I'm not wrong. But before the announcement, we have the stuffs. So this is where using the VPC is going to help you out to a great extent. So Warsaw, okay, yes, it was in the upcoming region. So Poland, they have it. I guess, I saw yesterday some news also. They are expanding in Poland. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, good. So minimum is 10 GB is what I can have. Minimum is 10 GB is what I can have. So I'm going to put it as 10 GB. And this is the beautiful feature which you can have. So if you keep it as 10 and enable this checkbox, by default it's enabled. So every time the storage increase comes very close to 10 GB, automatically uh, it's going to increase. You don't need to do anything extra. So it's going to keep on increasing till 30 terabytes. But you cannot reduce it. So the storage cannot be reduced. So we have seen that in our cloud, in our compute engines class itself. So you cannot change, increase, decrease the storage. You can always increase it. It's like our age. So age cannot be reduced. And the advanced the encryption part, you have only two types. You don't get the customer supplied encryption key option here. It's only available in Google Cloud Storage and persistent disk. We had seen this. This was the connection part, which we did not do last week because I did not had the default VPC. So let me enable public IP, let it be there. And you have to either authorize, add a whitelisting IP, or use Cloud SQL proxy. Both options, two options are there. We'll explore both the options. And another option which we are going to explore is private IP. This is going to be very, very important, at least not for the exam, but for your real implementation. So it requires additional APIs and permissions, which may require your system admin cannot disable once enabled. What it means, if a Cloud SQL instance is having a private IP address or an internal IP address, uh, you cannot change it later. You can remove an external IP address. If Cloud SQL instance is having external IP address, you can remove it. But once the internal IP address is allocated, you cannot change it. It is going to be fixed and you cannot even disable it. So let me click on this. When I click on it, I'm going to get a pop-up. Okay, pop-up is not coming. Default. Now they have changed the user interface. I'm using my default network. The first thing is there's going to be a connectivity required. Your default network requires a private service connection. This connection enables your service to communicate exclusively using the internal IP address. So set this up connection. So let me set this up. So the first thing which you need to do is enable this API. So this API needs to be enabled. This is called as service networking API. Let me enable it. And this is used by memory store, which we will explore maybe mostly tomorrow, TensorFlow and Cloud SQL instance. Now you can allocate a range for your IP, or if you say we are not so good with networking, let Google allocate it. Just leave it as or use an automatically allocated IP. For now, we can use automatically allocated one. We enabled an API. We are doing an IP allocation. Continue. That's it, folks. Now if I click on create, it's going to create a connection. That is nothing but a peering between two networks. So more in network we will talk about in our networking class. So let's wait for this to finish it off. The previous interface was little easier. So it was in the main screen itself. So now we have to wait for this. The connection is getting created. Now if I go to my networking and just refresh the screen, you should see a new entry, a peering entry between your main default VPC and a network. You see this? This was not there. This got created just now. This just got created. It's because of configuring our Cloud SQL instance with a internal IP. Internal IP. So let's wait for it to complete. Yes, it has been completed. So private service connection for the default has been successfully created. You can now use the same network across all your projects managed service. So you can use the internal IP. So the change was this one. More on VPC peering in our networking class. I just wanted to give you a small heads up. When you do that, there's going to be some networking change which is happening. So that's it. So we have a private IP, we have a public IP. If you want to turn on binary, and because we have turned on HA mode, backups are going to be automatically enabled. That's it. Let's click on create. So what and all we did, basically exactly like what we did on our last Sunday. We created a password and we saved the password in a secret manager. Today we created a version 2 of it using the latest version of MySQL in Singapore, and we have a HA, and we have selected N1 standard one. N1 series only you can use basically. And we are going to use SSD. This is going to be better for database because you're going to have more queries per second. So the throughput is going to be better. But if you're having, if you're using this for a development environment, you can use HDD. the magnetic one. The minimum storage is 10 GB. I have used that, and I've also enabled automatic storage increase. This is an important one. If it's a production system, turning on this is very, very important. By default, it's going to be turned on, but this is going to be a good one. But if you say I don't want to increase it, let's going to be always 10 GB. Don't enable it. Private IP, public IP enabled. Remaining things are left as default. Let me click on create. You see a summary page. The DB version is this, configuration is this, the throughput is going to be this much, private connection is there, and high availability is turned on. So let me click on create. Basically it's going to create two Cloud SQL instance behind the scene, folks. One in Singapore A zone, that's where our main server is going to be, and another one in Singapore B zone. The Singapore B zone, I'm not sure whether we can see it right now, but when we do a failover, and there's an option to do manually a failover just to check it. Now, as cloud architects, sometimes we want to do some monthly drills to see whether everything is working fine. So you want to do a simulation and see everything is working fine. At that time, we can do a failover. So when we do a failover, manual failover, it's going to fail over to basically Singapore B zone. We can see that. The instance is getting created. It's going to take roughly around 7 to 8 minutes. So no public IP currently, no private IP. Once it gets provisioned, you should have it. And the zone is already fixed. We selected A zone. So let's just wait for a few minutes for it to come up. So by the time this comes up, what we are going to do next is we have the instance ready. Last week itself, we created the dump and we had moved it to or copied it into Google Cloud Storage. Let me just show you the Google Cloud Storage there, and I'll show you how we are going to import it. By the time the instance gets created, we can look into this part. Now, before I show you the Google Cloud Storage content, for the first time, we are using two services, folks. Two services. Sometimes we have used virtual machine in Google Cloud Storage. Now, apart from a virtual machine, for the first time, we are using some other service in GCP along with Google Cloud Storage. This is service 1. This is service 2. Now, a Cloud SQL instance should be able to read the content from a Google Cloud Storage bucket. What is something which needs to be taken care here? Let me know, and please turn on your mode to only to the presenter or to Mahesh. Don't put the information in everyone so that everybody can think. Question is, there is two servers. I want to read the data. If I show you the data where it is, this is the bucket and the dump which we uploaded last Sunday, March 14th, it is there. So from this Google Cloud Storage bucket, I have to read it, right? I should have read access to this MySQL instance. What and all should you do basically, folks? Two services needs to communicate. What is the thing which you should take into consideration? Any thoughts? Good, Vivek. Awesome. Why do you need a write? Yes, Adarsh, that's correct. And Deepak, read and write to Cloud SQL instance, not required. Mangesh, you are halfway correct. Vivek got the complete answer actually. Anybody else, folks? Two services are there, folks. If two services were to interact each other, and there's no human involved here, please remember there's no human involved. It's going to be two APIs or two services. What is the one which two services come each other, they are interacting? What is the most important thing we should use? Yes, Ankit, awesome. And to that, what should you give? What should be the access you should give? The Cloud SQL instance, what should be the access it should be given? Principle of least privilege, if you were to do it. what should you give? What role should you give? Basically, you have different roles. Yes, that's correct, Ankit. Anybody else, folks? We are just using the time. By the time this gets created, I wanted to show you, ask you this part. Anybody else wants to do it? Okay. Now, how these two services interact each other is with the help of a service account. So Ankit, Vivek, Adarsh got it correctly. Mangesh got it correctly. So 4 of you got it correctly, basically. Now, how it happens basically is, this is basically, literally, if you ask me, is a virtual machine. Nothing but a virtual machine. So for a virtual machine, you will definitely have a service account. But when you create a new Cloud SQL instance, it's not going to be your default service account, default compute engine service account. It's not going to be that. Every Cloud SQL instance is going to have one service account, and the service account looks slightly weird. Let me just show you. So still the instance is getting created, but we should be able to see the service account if I'm not wrong. Let me just show you that. Okay, IP, internal IP all allocated. Um, This is the service account, folks. Look at this name. Very weird name, but you are going to have gcp-sa-cloudsql.gserviceaccount.com. This is the service account of your Cloud SQL instance. Now you have a service account which belongs to this Cloud SQL instance. Now you have to read only from this bucket. Read only from this bucket is what you need to do. So basically, what is going to happen when we do the import using the UI? There's an option to do import via UI, something like this: import, export, all those things. Currently it's not enabled because the instance is not fully up. Once it is fully up, you are going to see a import option enabled. So when I import it from this, basically what's going to happen is, that service account which I showed you, which is starting with P388, automatically the user interface, this is the only place where I see user interface does something very smart. It comes to this bucket, goes to the show info panel, and in info panel it's going to add a member. The member is basically this service account. It adds this service account and gives a read-only access, meaning object viewer, storage, object viewer. This is the role it's going to give when we do it from the UI. If you do it from the command line, you have to do this explicitly. So this, I'm not going to do it because the system is going to do it right now once I start the this thing. But I just wanted to show you how the concept of service account gets used, basically. So I have not added it, folks. I've just left it, but I wanted to show you what happens behind the scene when we start the importing from Google Cloud Storage. This is an important role, and the role you have to give it to the service account. This service account will not have currently any role to Google Cloud Storage. And this service account, right, if you spend some time, look into your IAM, you will not see it. You will not see it. So if I just go to my IAM service account, this is also a service account, right? It very clearly mentions it's a service account. But if you go to your service account, you will never see a service account like that. One is App Engine, the other one is a default service account, the one which we generated for our sign URL, and one more service account. Two service accounts we created. So you don't see that in this page. This is something specific to that Cloud SQL instance. That's it. Okay. So is that clear, folks? Is that clear? What is going to happen in the next few minutes when we start the migration or the importing? Basically trying to connect the concepts which we learned: service account, IAM, all those things still continues. Now I have my Cloud SQL instance, which has a public IP address, which has an internal IP address, and high availability is turned on, and I cannot see my failover instance in the UI, folks. In the beginning they used to show, now for some reason they have hidden it. So you cannot see the failover one. But we are very sure the failover is in Singapore B zone. That is very clear because we mentioned it. Now what we are going to do is we have everything ready. We have also understood what's going to happen behind the scene. We will just import the data from cloud storage to to MySQL. So how do I do it? You can do it in the command line. You can also do it in the UI. I'm just going to take the UI way. Easy. And what's going to happen behind the scene, I have already explained you. So now before I import it, right, I wanted to import, this is an instance, folks. This is an instance which you have created, and if you go to databases, you will see some database, built-in databases, and this is going to vary from database to database. If it's MySQL, you're going to have some default database. If it's Oracle, it's going to have some default system databases. Now, these are the 4 things which is going to be there. I wanted to create a 5th database called as world database with all the default stuffs. I'm not from a database background, so I'm going to leave everything as default. I just wanted a database. In the instance, you create a database. Now inside this database, I can create tables, store procedures, functions, user-defined functions, everything. Okay, so the database is created. Why we are creating the database? Because when we import the data, it has to be imported to a database. So that's where, and I have seen there's a bug usually in the UI, so that's the reason I refresh the screen. Now let me go to my overview page where I'm going to click on import. Now this is where the beautiful thing which you are going to see is Google Cloud Storage used as a staging environment. We saw the slide, right? Google Cloud Storage is going to be used as a staging environment for many services that you are going to see in action here. When I click on import, you will not have any other option, folks, except to import it from Google Cloud Storage. That's what you see. You have to use a storage bucket. You cannot get it directly from on-premise. So whenever there's any question which you get for migration, it could be even an interview question. So you have to stage the data into Google Cloud Storage, then import it. That's how you do it. So let me browse. So I have this selected and select the dump file which you wanted to import. And there's a green tick which indicates the permissions are all good, is what it indicates. And this is readable is what it shows. It automatically finds out the format. That's good. And I can also have a CSV file if you want. Now, what's the destination database you want to import? So there are 5 databases. I'm going to use world, the database which we created. Now, when I click on import, I need your focus on the screen for a minute. In case of a continuous DB sync, so we'll come to that, Vivek. So how do you do continuously integrate? We'll come to that. So this is the first time migration. So you get the data first time dump. So after first only you can have the continuous stuff, right? First, let's finish this part. So now here, if you can focus for a minute, what's going to happen is when I click on import, you're going to see a screen where it's going to say some permissions updated. What is that permission updated? Basically, if I refresh my storage bucket, if I go click, I have refreshed it. If I refresh it, so I see only legacy bucket owner, legacy bucket reader. I don't see anything else. So I can expand it and also show you who are there. So these are the people who can have access currently. But the moment I click on import, you're going to see this service account is going to have a storage object viewer role. So click on import. Okay, they used to show that screen. Now they are not. It shows actually permission updated. That was a new interface. That was an older interface in which they used to show, but now they are not showing it. Okay, import is done. You want to see the logs, import forget about the time, folks, so it's in a different time zone. So import is successful is what it indicates. Now if I can connect to this database and see this data base, I should be able to see those two tables, country and city table, which was there. Now we will explore that. Before that, can we come to the storage bucket, refresh it? Okay, it does not show. Forcefully refresh it. So select this bucket. Now you see a third entry, folks. You see a third entry. Now you see this. What is the service account, folks? What is a service account? It's nothing but your service account of your Cloud SQL instance. It's your Cloud SQL instance service account. But previously they used to give it as storage object viewer. I don't know why they changed it to admin. If you ask me, it's again a overkill, right? So admin is not required. So maybe they wanted to delete the content or something. Maybe that's the reason they have changed it. But this is what happens behind the scene when you do the import. So only for this bucket, that service account is going to get an access. So now the data is loaded successfully. Now it's only for us to check. We just need to check whether we are able to connect it or not. So for this, we need to connect to this instance. So there's a public IP, there's a private IP. In either one of the ways, if you connect it, you should be able to see it. So there are different tools where you can connect to a database. So usually every database will have a client. Uh, like MySQL has something like MySQL Workbench, DB Visualizer, or the bare minimum is you use a terminal command line and connect it. So there are different ways where you can connect to it. What I will do is I'll try to first connect from our Cloud Shell. We'll try to connect it from our Cloud Shell. So let me just launch this Cloud Shell. Would we be also covering encrypted data from on-prem to Cloud SQL first time load? So we did Adarsh, basically how to use Google Manage Encryption Key, how to use customers manage encryption key and customer supplied encryption key in storage class. So same concept, you're going to upload the data into a Google Cloud storage, which could be coming from a managed Google Manage Encryption Key, and you turn on in your Cloud SQL instance Google Manage Encryption Key, and then import it. So we are not going to do that, but we have seen a demo of that at a high level with the cloud storage itself. So if you have the bucket, which is Google Manage Encryption Key, and if your Cloud SQL instance is also configured with the same uh, customer manage encryption key, you should be able to do it. That's one way. And between Google Cloud Storage and and Cloud SQL instance, it's always going to be a private network. So encryption is already turned on, so you don't need to do it. But from your on-prem to GCP, if you were to do and you want to take care of encryption, what you can use is GSUtil. We use GSUtil. So GSUtil from on-prem to GCP, we use GSUtil. And if you look into the GSUtil documentation, GSUtil by default uses TLS. So the way which we approached was already encrypted itself. So it was already encrypted. So we were using TLS connection to upload the data from my on-prem to GCP. So that was already done last Sunday itself. So when you just use this thing, GSUtil, you don't need to do anything extra. From your on-prem to Google Cloud Storage, it's going to be TLS connection itself because you are using gsutil copy command. Now, I need to connect it, folks. And this is the MySQL instance. So The beauty of cloud storage is you get MySQL client by default. You don't need to do anything. This client is already there. Now I'm just going to use this command. The command is MySQL, the host name 34.87.40. The host name, the username for a MySQL instance by default is going to be root. So if you don't remember that, no problem. Every database will have different databases will have different default username. MySQL is going to have root, Postgres is going to have Postgres, and Microsoft SQL Server is going to have something called as SA, or something like some specific name is there. So if you don't remember, no problem. Just click on your Cloud SQL instance, go to users. Please remember, this users and your IAM is totally different. Please remember that. This is a normal database user. The default user is root. So go type root, and -p is for your password. So the password which we have is in our secret manager. So I'll just go to secret manager. Copy this. One minute. Okay. Just wanted to see whether I copied it or not. Okay. Copy. Okay. I'll not type it here. I'll prompt. When it prompts me, I'm just going to type it. So it's going to prompt me. Hit enter. Hit enter. So I have given the username, password with the specific connection string. Let's see whether it's going to connect. The longer the time, it's an indication that it's not going to connect. That's the hint. What could be the reason why it's not connecting, folks? Any reason which you think why it's not connecting? Let's wait. We can wait. But why it's not connecting from my Cloud Shell? Any reason? This is where a small security feature comes into picture. Nothing to do with the subnet. Whitelisting is the important thing. So the whitelisting is the important thing. So we have not whitelisted the Cloud Shell's IP address to connect. So if I just go to my Cloud SQL instance, we just created it with internal IP, external IP. That's good. But when I go to connections, I'll anyway minimize it. So if I click on connections, you see public IP, authorized network, or use a Cloud SQL proxy to connect to this instance. What it currently shows is you don't have an authorized or any external network to connect your Cloud SQL instance. So only if you whitelist it, as Vivek mentioned, you will be able to get access. And there's nothing like I grant access to Cloud Shell, because I'm using a normal Cloud SQL or a normal MySQL command to connect. So it's not going to connect is what it indicates. So we can just leave it as is. It's going to try after sometimes it's going to come up and show. It's not going to allow. So you have to do a whitelisting basically. So you have to get the IP address of your Cloud SQL instance. Sorry, IP address of your Cloud Shell, then enter it. The same is the case is going to happen if I try it from my you see that message, so you cannot connect it. Same happens if you connect from anywhere. So anywhere, unless you don't whitelist it, you are not going to get it. Now how do I get the IP address of my Cloud Shell? There are different ways which you can do. Basically, one of the easiest way which I started using is something called as IP5. There are lots of options which you can use. It's up to you what you want to do. So I usually started using this. It's a nice tool where I can run a small curl command. I don't need to remember the command also. So copy this. if I just paste it, it's going to send a request to this. So it's like any website which can get your IP address. So I run a curl command, I get the IP address. This is my Cloud Shell's IP address. Now I can go and add this as a whitelisted IP address and connect it. This is one way I can do it, but I'm not going to do this way because uh, there are some other different options which we can do. But if you want, you can explicitly add it. Let me just explicitly add it for now and delete it later. Okay, so add this. I'm going to whitelist it. So add a network. So I'll call this as my cloud shell, and add that IP. That's it. Done. Save it. First authorized network, we have added it. So it is done. Now I should be able to connect it, but I have to make sure I remember the password. I'm just going to copy it. Connect back, paste the password, hit enter, boom, we are there. And it shows the exact version of your MySQL instance. 8.0.18 is the minor version. So if you just search in internet, it should be something like 28 or something, the latest version. So it's not up to the latest version with the including the minor one. So we are there in the prompt. So people who have worked in database, it's going to be something very similar which would have seen pSQL in Oracle, T-SQL in Microsoft SQL Server, or MySQL prompt in MySQL. So I have this. So it very clearly indicates it is a Google server. This version, Google, all those things. I'm just going to clear the screen for a better real estate. Now I can do some commands, and the next few commands which you are going to run, if you don't understand, if you're not from a database background, no worries. So our job as a cloud architect ends when we authorize the network. Remaining stuff to log in, all those things, it's going to be good for a DBA to do it. But to have the completeness of the demo, I'm just going to run few commands, folks, and it's not going to be so difficult to use this command. If you want to learn, you can learn it. So show database. The commands are very simple. Show me all the database. It shows all the database which we saw in the UI. Now, if I want to use a specific database, the command is simple. Use world. I want to use this world database. You have to put all the commands at least in MySQL, semicolon. Every command should be ended with a semicolon. Now what I have done, I have changed to a data. I have listed all the database. I wanted to switch to a specific database or want to use a database called as world. Good. I'm currently in the world. So inside the database, what will you have? You will have tables. If you want to show all the tables, it's going to show you the three tables which we had migrated from our dump file: city, country, language. You are going to see it. So you're going to see it, and if you want to query it, select star from city. I'm just going to put a limit of 4. So 4 cities are going to be shown. Simple. Now we have successfully migrated our done our first migration, folks. A complete dump. We have taken it and we have dumped it. I'll come later how you can do something like incremental synchronization from on-prem to do something like change data, CDC, usually they call it as. So how do we do it? All those things I'll show you later. But first part was a migration from on-prem to GCP as is. We did not do any changes to our schema or anything. So we got the dump, exported it or copied into Google Cloud Storage. Then from our Cloud SQL instance, we imported it and we are there. So, and we were not able to connect it. So we whitelisted our Cloud Shell and we did it. So now similarly, if I want to give access to your Cloud Shell, basically what I can do is I can give a specific range and whitelist it. So let's just do a small activity there. If everybody can launch your Cloud Shell, so just to have a small interactive session, if you can type this in your Cloud Shell, And you don't need to type me your entire Cloud Shell's IP address. Just tell me whether it is starting with 35 or whether it's running, it's starting with 35 or 34 or something else. Just tell me the first octet. That's good enough. First octet. Let me know, folks, what's the octet which you're having. 35, 34 is what I have seen usually. For people in US, it's going to be something like 130 if I'm not wrong. Something of that sort. Who wants to connect to the Cloud SQL instance can check it out and let me know. I'm just going to give an whitelisting for that range basically. So I'm ready for your inputs. Learners Cloud Shell. It's connecting. Okay. I'm going to put 35.0.0/8. The first 8 bit is reserved. The remaining 24 bits are going to change. So that's one. Another which I have seen is basically 34. Okay. 35. Okay. No, I don't want to put Anil 0.0. So it's going to open to the world. We know we can, if you do it, it's going to be open to the world. I don't want to do that. So if I put something like 0.0.0, what's going to happen is I'm opening to the world. It's going to also show me a warning message. This is not a recommended one. We can do that, which makes everybody to allow it. So that's the easiest option. So I wanted to show you how you can do this part. So I'm just going to add one more network. Giving blank for the IP. You should have typed that command which I typed it in the chat. You should be able to get it. Try it one more time, Deepak. I'm not sure whether I can add multiple IPs here, but it's going to only take one IP at a time. It just says my public. Okay. Better launch your Cloud Shell one more time, Deepak. So I see 35, 34. I'm just going to do only two. If everybody says the same thing, done. Save. I've added two. Now I can remove my Cloud Shell entry also because it's also already in 35. I'm going to remove my entry with this two. How do I? Okay, there's another progress. 1 minute. So let me just wait. There's a something which is in progress. Maybe some changes. Okay. Oh, what happened? Sorry, something happened there. So 35. It all deleted. Everything got deleted. Sorry. So this is the first series. The second series is 34 series. 34.0.0/ I did not get any other range, folks. I'm just going to make it only this one. Save it. Done. So now Okay, Deepak's is also 35, so it's going to work for Deepak also. So most of them is this in range. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share the public IP to you, so you can use that and you should be able to connect it. So let me just give you the command. If you're not from the MySQL background, oh sorry, it's work. Okay, let me just type the command. So you can try something in your cloud shell like MySQL -h -p sorry -u root -p. This is the command, and the password I have to share it in the chat, but I can share this URL provided to everybody, so I can do that also. Let me try to share the secret. We don't have a group actually. If I had created a group, I could have given access to that group. So for now, I'm just going to do something like this. All users, hope it comes. Okay, it must be a Gmail. Okay, it does not work. We have to have a Gmail ID. So for now, right, usually the way it's going to be done is they are going to share it. Last week we had seen how you share this credentials. So for now, I'm just going to paste the credentials in the chat. Yes, Anil, your thing should also get connected. So when it prompts for the password, just paste this. You should be able to connect to your Cloud SQL instance, folks. Let me know once you are connected. What's the typo there? Uh, Connected. People get connected. There's no typo, Anil. Oh, that. Okay, that was a. Okay, that was a copy paste from the existing this thing. So okay, fine. So people are able to connect. Mangesh, when it prompts, you should type your password or copy your password, which I typed in the chat. Few of you are able to connect it. So if you don't copy it properly, it's going to have issues. So just wanted to show you how you connect it, folks. That's it. So you are connected basically. Now what I'm going to do is basically, and this is the same concept. Now if you want to do it from your local laptop, get the IP address of your laptop and whitelist it, and you should be able to connect it. So it's the same procedure. The procedure remains the same. So this is how you do it with your public IP address. Now let me quit. To quit it, you can put /q and you can come out, or exit also is going to work. Now we saw the migration was successful, so everything was good, so that's good. Now what we are going to see is we are going to see a second way of connecting it. So I'm just going to remove all my whitelisted IPs. I'm just going to remove everything. I don't want to do this explicitly, so assume these were explicit stuffs, you added it like this, that's good. And now I'm discarding, I'm just removing everything. It's going to be back to square one where nothing is going to be there. No authorized network is going to be there. Now the second way is, which we are going to do is, so it's also there in the cheat sheet, you can look into it directly from Cloud Shell. I don't want to do whitelisting and all. Now for example, right, we have provisioned everything, but all of a sudden the DBA may come and share the information saying that looks like the database is down, maybe it's not connecting, can you please help us? So if that is the case, if the DBA says, and we as cloud architect if we were to see whether the connectivity is working or not, I don't want to add my IP address only for that few minutes where I want to do the check. So for doing something ad hocly, the good option which you can do is, provided the Cloud SQL instance is having an external IP address, what you can do is you have an option. If you just come to your Cloud SQL instance, click on the overview page, you have an option called as connect using shell. If I just click on it, it's going to show me this command, folks. Now this is not MySQL command, so it basically is a G-Cloud command. This is a wrapper which is built on top of your MySQL -h -u, that command. So this is a wrapper. So what this basically does is it does two things. Only for 5 minutes, it's going to whitelist your Cloud Shell's IP address. So only for 5 minutes. Afterwards, you will not be able to connect it. So that's okay for us to do only a quick check, a sanity check. So that's the beauty of this command. So does this first gets the IP address of the Cloud Shell, whitelists it, and then allows us to connect. So let me just hit enter, authorize this. Now you should see a command whitelisting your okay, Cloud SQL API has not been enabled. Enable it. It was enabled, if I'm not wrong. So there's an API specifically which is not enabled, is what it indicates. Let's try to enable it. So to enable the API, go to your APIs and services library, SQL admin API. Oh, it's not enabled. Let me enable it. Done. Now let's go back to our Cloud SQL. And before I run this command, just wanted to show there's no whitelisting. There's no whitelisting, folks. Now only for 5 minutes, I can easily connect it with my cloud storage. It's going to show whitelisting for 5 minutes, something of that sort. You see this? Allowing your IP for the incoming connection only for 5 minutes. And after 5 minutes, the connection is going to be removed. That authorized list is going to be, it's a short-lived connection is what you are opening up. So once it prompts for the password, I should be able to type the password. So I'll just keep it ready. Done. It is prompting for a password. Hit enter. Now I'm there, folks. And you want to verify whether it's really our database. So you can use something like use world. It should be there. Now you can type show tables. It is there. If you want to select the content or query the content, city limit 10. Last time we did 4. This time you are doing 10. It comes up. So we are connected to the same thing. So what happened behind the scene? If you are very curious to know, I'm a person who likes to know those kind of stuffs, usually what happens behind the scene. Now you can just go to your Cloud SQL instance. I will open it in a new page. New page, go to your Cloud SQL instance, connections. You will have an entry. You will have an entry called like this. Cloud SQL Connect at this time. It uses this time. There's going to be some kind of a job behind the scene. We don't need to do it. After 5 minutes, if you come and see, this entry is going to be removed. And what is this IP address? This is nothing but my Cloud Shell's IP address. Want to verify it one more time? Let me just copy it. this command, run it in my Cloud Shell. Ending with 67. That is what it also shows here. So this is exactly my Cloud Shell's IP. So this is another way, folks. No need to use IP5 or anything. Just run your command, which is your gcloud SQL connect, and just only with gcloud you are not going to it's not going to happen. So it's a wrapper, folks. So it uses gcloud command. Internally it's going to do a call to your MySQL instance. Basically it's a two-step process: whitelist followed by use MySQL -h and connect it. That's how it's going to work. So is this part clear, folks? The second part, ad hocly, if you were to connect it, just use Cloud SQL Connect. You should be able to connect it. But for this, again, you need to have an external IP address. You need to have an external IP address. Only then it's going to work. If you try to run this command from your local laptop, it can also work, but it depends whether your local laptop is having an external IP address, whether it is IPv4 or IPv6. If it is IPv6, it's not going to work. For example, let me just copy this command. Or let me just go to my local laptop. So this is my local laptop, and based on my service provider and the router which I'm using, my IP address is actually an IPv6 address. So if I just type in my laptop, this is my laptop. So what is my IP? It's an IPv6 address. Now I cannot add an IPv6 address for whitelisting. It has to be an IPv4 only. So if I just use this, go whitelisted, it's going to throw me an error. So if I add here, add a new network, my laptop, if I paste this, it's going to show me the error. So it's enter IPv4, not IPv6. So now what you can do is, this is where usually the IP5 comes very handy. So you can use some converters. IP5 usually gives you a converted version. So for meaning, if I just go to IP5, it gives you two options to get your IPv6, IPv4. So if I just use this IP or this API, it's going to give me my IPv6. Now if I use another API, this is the IPv4 version of it. This is my IPv4 address, meaning if I just add this, I should be able to connect from my local machine also, basically. So the whole intent of sharing this information is Cloud SQL instance still relies on IPv4. So I would say slightly in this part, Google is slightly lagging. Uh, uh, Cloud providers like Azure and all, they have started leveraging IPv6 heavily. Google is still not using it. For their virtual machines, it is IPv4. For Cloud SQL instance, it is IPv4. Only for load balancers, they are using IPv6 address, at least till now. So, but Azure, I saw among the three popular cloud providers, Azure is heavily using IPv6. That's what I heard, folks. So just wanted to make it very clear. It has to be IPv4 only, not IPv6. Okay. Now, refresh the screen. 5 minutes over, if I'm not wrong, or maybe still there. But let me just verify it's there or not. Gone. You see that, folks? 5 minutes over. I did not do anything. The entry is removed. It's going to be automatically removed by Google. You don't need to do anything. So ad hocly, when you were to do it, use gcloud SQL Connect, and you should be all good. So is this part clear, folks? Is this part what we did now? Is this clear? The migration part which we did, is this clear? Okay, so it's clear, and it was a left-hand shift. Now let me answer the question which a few of you had. How do I do basically continuously sync my data? Meaning in my on-prem, I am going to have some data continuously. This is my main database, and I want to have a synchronization happening to my Cloud SQL instance. So that's where you are going to have a new product recently launched called as, at least for MySQL it is there. For other, you have to use some third-party tools basically. So if I just go to my Cloud SQL database migration, so you have this option called as database migration. So click on migration jobs. This is, I guess, 4 months, 3 months back this was launched. So database migration. So enable this service. This is going to help you to migrate from on-prem to GCP and also going to keep continuously the data sync. So let me enable this API. This is one option which you can use, and there are lots of other tools available in the market where you can use this, have a continuous data synchronization which you can do. CDC is what they usually which they usually call the DBS and all. They usually call this term, what is that called, CDC, change data, CDC. I usually forget the name, folks. Change data capture. Thank you. Change data capture is what you can do continuously. Any changes, you should be able to capture it. So let me just show you whether, yeah, it is done. I have enabled the migration. Now you can sign up for, if you want, early access for Postgres. MySQL is already there. So if I click on MySQL create migration job, I can configure my job here. What's my job details, the source, what's the engine. These are the possible engines which you can have. Soon there are a few other stuffs going to come. So this is a managed service, folks. Now, if you want something yourself, you are a DBA, an expert working in database for a long time, you know how to handle it. You can do it in a different style altogether. But if you want to use a managed service, this is something which you can use basically. So if you mention source is this one, you mention what's your destination. So you can choose the source could be anything. The destination is always going to be GCP. If I select Singapore, uh, uh, prior to this one, I have not used it, but there are a few tools which I have heard which is going to be there. So at least during the Oracle migration slides, I'll talk about that, Vivek. There are a few tools like something like what is that tool? Uh, there's one tool, I'm not getting that tool name, but there's in the slide. I'll talk about that. There's an option there. So you can mention these details here, and you should be able to configure your change data capture easily with this option continuously. This is one option which you can do. The second option is if I go to my Cloud SQL instance itself, this one, migrate data. So when I do this, migrate your database migration service. When I do this, what you can do is you can have your Cloud SQL as your read replica. Oh, this comes here only. Yeah. Okay. They changed it. Okay. It comes here only. So you create your job and you should be able to do it. Basically, this is one option built in this thing. But if you are an expert with something like what is that called, Achunity, if I'm not wrong, Achunity has a product where you can do this kind of migration very easily. So this is one option, folks, and if you're an expert, you can do it in different style. Now let's move on to our next part, failover demo. So we will do a failover demo. Before we do that failover demo, let's take a 10 minutes break. Once we come back, we'll see. We already have a HA mode, right? It's going to be usually something like an active passive kind of stuffs. The failover is also going to be continuously synchronizing your data. Continuously synchronizing. What will happen when Singapore A zone goes down due to a natural calamity or whatever it is down, the failure will happen automatically. But we cannot wait for that automatic failure to happen and see whether it really happens or not. So this could be also a possible question. So if you want to see, say for example, if the failure is not happening properly, what will you do? First, do a regular check, do a routine check whether the failure happens. To do that regular check, you can use an option in Cloud SQL called as I'm just going to pin this so that I can easily scan many times. So if I go to Cloud SQL, you can do a failover, manual failover, to check whether everything is going to work as expected. Okay, so we'll do this demo once we come back from our break. So take a break and come back, folks. So let me stop the recording.
This conference will now be recorded.
So before the break, what we saw was how to connect it and see the whitelisting part we saw. And there are two different styles. One is you go explicitly whitelisted or use G-Cloud SQL Connect, which is going to do a whitelisting, is what we saw. Now, since we configured our Cloud SQL instance with HA mode or failover, basically, there's going to be a failover instance in Singapore B zone. We know that. We had designed it that way. So how this exactly happens is what we are going to see by a real demo itself. So before I show you the demo, the architecture behind the HA, when you turn on Cloud SQL instance as a HA, what's going to happen is what this is this thing, folks. You have region 1. In our case, it's Singapore. So you have your primary Cloud SQL instance, which is in zone A, your standby or failover in zone B. Now, what's going to happen basically is, in very simple terms, this is nothing but a virtual machine. I've told you this couple of times. So this this virtual machine is going to use basically a regional persistent disk. Persistent disk can be zonal or regional. We have seen it. So in actually it's not regional. It's going to be dual zone only. So it's a regional persistent disk is what they would have configured. And the data is going to be synced. So because it's regional, right? So, or dual zone to be very specific, you are going to have two copies of the data in zone A and zone B. Now, for a database, the storage is the most important component. Now, any client communicating, it's going to hit the IP address, public or private, whatever it is. It's going to go to the primary, then it's going to read the data. It's going to read the data there. This is how it happens. When a failover happens, right, what's going to happen is the client should not have any issues. So if your IP address is something x.y.z.a, the client will not have any issues. So what's going to happen during the failover, right? The public IP address, the private IP address of your primary instance would be assigned to your standby instance. The mapping is going to happen automatically, and this is going to take a couple of minutes for you, maybe sometimes 5 minutes. So but the data is always in sync, but that switch over or the failover is going to take a little time, so it's not going to be immediate, is what I wanted to show you by this demonstration. So behind the scene, a regional persistent disk is there. Now, what is regional persistent disk? If you have forgotten, let me just quickly show you what is this. And regional persistent disk can be replicated between two zones. So let me just show you that background, and then we will jump into this demonstration. So if I go to my compute engine, disk, when I create a disk, I can create a regional PD. How do I do it? If it is in Singapore, I just do this, folks. Enable regional data replication. So what's going to happen basically is I can select two zones of my choice. You can select which zone you want basically, so where it needs to be replicated. So you can select sorry, they changed the user interface so badly. 1 minute. In A and in B, this is what I'm going to do. So this is going to be a regional persistent disk, but basically it's going to be between two zones only. Now the data gets replicated, and even if one zone goes down, your data can be still be recovered from the other zone. This is the same setup which you're seeing it here, folks. Same setup. And we don't need to do anything here because it's a managed service. Everything Google is going to create it. But if you were to implement something very similar what Google has done, you create a virtual machine, and this virtual machine is going to have a data disk. That data disk is going to be a regional persistent disk, which is between A and B. This is the stuff. Okay, so let's see this in action by doing a manual failover. So why we are doing a manual failover? We want to see whether the failover really works or not. And the highlight of this failover is the client does not have any impact. The client continues to work. There's going to be a small glitch, or for a short time there's going to be a downtime like 2 or 3 minutes or sometimes 5 minutes, where the client will not be able to connect. And the client could be a web application, it could be a normal MySQL client also. So it's going to have a small downtime. Maybe it's not going to connect because the server is down. It's not down, but only that IP mapping is going to happen, because of which you will not be able to connect it. So to show that it really works, I'm going to take a screenshot, folks. Screenshot of this. So I'm going to, I don't need the type column. I'm just going to remove this. Okay. So take a screenshot so that it's going to be for our reference purpose. Okay. You see the IP address, public IP address, this zone. Now when failover happens, what should happen basically is everything should remain the same. As per this diagram, everything should remain the same. Only thing is that the master is going to be now in B zone. IP address same, internal IP same, public IP same. The location of the master should be in B. That is what is going to happen. So there's only two disks, one in the primary, and yes, because it's a regional persistent disk, it's only going to be two disks. So two disk which is replicated continuously. You should have the data up to date. It's only two disk, not three. It's only two. They call it as regional persistent disk though, but if you ask me, it's going to be dual persistent disk is what I would say, because it's only between two zones. Only if it's between three zones, then I can call it as regional. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll do a failover, folks. And also to show you that during the failover your client will have issues, all those things, what I will do is I'll try to connect it. I'll use my this thing to connect. Now using that password, right, it's becoming little difficult, folks. The password which we have put it in a secret manager, at least for this demonstration, right, I'm going to change the password to a very simple password. Copy pasting it is becoming difficult, uh, but I showed you the concept. You have to use a very strong password. Keep the password in a secret manager. So I'm just going to change the password of my root user. I'm just going to show you the password. There's no hiding here. I'll keep it as, this is not recommended, but for only for this demonstration, it's becoming difficult for me to paste that huge password. I'm just going to make it as demo GCP. That's the password, new password. Now I will go to my home screen. Now what I will also do is I'll also whitelist my Cloud Shell IP. Or maybe most of our IPs were what, 35 dot and 34 dot, right? Let me do it. You can also give a try to see whether the downtime, how long the downtime is going to have. 35.0.0.0/8, another network which is 34.0.0.8, save it. Save it. And now, folks, you can open up your Cloud Shell, same IP, connect it, same IP, connect it, but the password now is simple, so that you don't need to paste it, or you can just type it if you want. So I'm connected to my instance, folks. I'm connected to my instance. Now, here it is there. Now I'll open one more instance. I'll keep this ready. I'll just keep this ready just to show you what is going to happen during the failover. Okay, so hope you are connected, and I can also run a command if I want. Use world database. Yeah, if you're connected, keep it. Let's just do a failover. World. Select star from city, limit 4. The command is running. Okay, the command is running. Now what I'm going to do is failover, folks. Click on failover, and you may see some marketing articles. You may see sales people talking like, when you do failover, zero downtime is going to happen. The reality is there's going to be a downtime. Let's accept that. Let's not convey a wrong message. There's going to be a downtime. So this operation cannot be undone. That's okay. So let me just repeat it. What we are going to do is a manual failover, just to check whether everything is working as expected. Okay, that is the main thing. Maybe before the failover we do, why don't we update something here, folks? What I'll do is I'll update my population in the this thing. So update city, set population equal to population plus some 10,000. Okay, update city. Yeah, done. Some 479 rows were updated. Now if I just do this one, the population is going to be updated by 1,000. So do I see that really? 20,000. You see that update has happened. So why I did it? I did before the failover, I did some changes. Now I'm going to do a failover. It is saying it's not going to be undone, so reverse is not possible. So failover once done, failover only. Enter the instance name. Now when I do this, this is where you have to try connecting, folks. Try connecting to the instance and see whether you are able to reach it to this instance or not. If you are able to reach it, no downtime. But after sometimes you will have a glitch where saying it's not able to connect. That's where that actual failover, switching of IPs are happening. So let me click on trigger. Now try running it. It's running. It's running. Now you see that it's not running. So it shows the server is shut down. Connection itself lost. Now it cannot even connect. It's not able to connect it. I guess the same experience is what you are also going to get. So you will not be able to connect it. So still no connection, trying to connect. So you see this downtime. Let's be very realistic and let's not convey a wrong message. Zero downtime, I'm able to comment this thing. Mini it's freeze. Now I'm able to connect, folks. It was like 2 minutes or less than a minute. You should be able to now connect. It should work. Is it working for you, folks? If you have not tried it, it's okay, but I have showed you in the screen itself. It's going to work now. It's going to work. Is it connecting? For people who had connected, Mangesh, Vivek, that's it. There was a downtime. Literally, we have to accept it. And the client had a downtime. We were not able to connect it. So if you want to call this as active passive, I'm okay. It's not active active. If somebody from a very senior level, they say, oh, you had a downtime for 23 seconds, I cannot accept it, then just call it as active passive. But if they say, okay, 1 minute, 2 minutes is okay, we can still call it as active active. You can call it. Now it's going to depend upon what is the person to whom you're talking to. But let's be realistic, there's going to be a little network or a free you are going to have a small connectivity loss. If you want to treat it as active active, your choice. You take a call which one you want to call. So okay, so active active is usually basically if the main server goes down, the other server, you are going to do it, and you are going to not see any glitch like this, Anil. In very, very simple terms, both are active. If something goes down, the other one is going to take up immediately. No glitch. That's your active active kind of a configuration. Active passive is it's going to be in a passive mode. So once this main server is gone down, the passive server is going to come up. So for coming up, syncing, all those things is going to take a few minutes. That's your active passive architecture. So active active is always going to be expensive. So is this possible realistically? Yes, you can have it. You can have it with few extra configurations. You should be able to do it. But if the team agrees that there's going to be a little time, short time acceptable, like the one which I showed, then we can use our current architecture itself. Is there a way around to make Cloud SQL active? Now it's up to you, others. Like I showed you the reality. Now if the team can accept 23 seconds or 30 seconds or even a minute of downtime is okay, you can do it with this itself. No extra stuffs are required. But if the team says no, zero downtime is what I have to have, then you have to have something slightly different, which I can talk about it later. So what I showed, the downtime was there, Anil B. So downtime was there. You saw it by yourself. Now you consider whether this is active active or active passive, your choice. I leave it to you people. Sometimes because I have shown this in the past to few other batch, they were not comfortable. There was a downtime, so they told it is active passive. So for me, it's going to be active active, basically. For a very high transaction system, it's not active active. If you look like that, if it's a banking system, even at 30 seconds or this thing is going to be not an active active, it's just treated as active passive. But in Cloud SQL instance, per my understanding, this is what you can achieve. If you want totally zero, then there is a product which we can use called as Spanner, which we may talk about that in tomorrow's class. Okay, so now the most important part which you should be knowing is what happened to our Cloud SQL instance. Let's come to our Cloud SQL instance. Look at the stuffs, folks. So I'm just going to get my snapshot. So this is my snap, the bottom one. I'm just going to put it back to back so that you can compare it. The only change, what is the one which is changed, folks? IP, same. Internal IP, same. Only the location is what is changed. Region remains the same, folks. It cannot be a different region. Please remember that. Only the zone gets changed. The zone. From A zone, it went to B zone. Why only B? Because it was very clearly mentioned during our creation. We mentioned the failover should be in B zone. That's it. Okay, so meaning the client does not need to do any change. So client does not need to do any change. It's only from the server side itself, it's going to do all the changes for us. So hope this diagram is now making sense, folks. One single IP, it's going to make the change. So it's going to be allocated to your failover instance and it's going to start working. So hope this part is clear. Failover part and let's accept there's going to be time. Like if you're going to answer an interview question with zero downtime, can I fail over? Keep this at the back of your mind, the demo, use it appropriately and answer it. Okay. Now, we have seen the failover, all those things. That's good. Now, what we will do is there a question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just I think, just as a curiosity, I think I had something like hot like in case of DR setup
Hmm,
from on-premises to GCP. There is something called hot means
hmm.
uh, uh,
Active,
get
active, hot, hot are same.
yeah yeah means like if the on-premises database gets failed, it will do a failover by using DNS. I'm not going to
Hmm,
talk about DNS. I know it's later
hmm.
half. Just want to check means what is this means the connection is going towards on-premises, suddenly will start routing to production without any glitches. I
Basically,
mean,
that's what is going to happen. So what you will do in your application, right? So in your application, you're not going to use an IP address. If you use an IP address, resolving that is going to happen, is going to have an issue. So instead of that, you're going to have something like a DNS entry. So app.example.com, something like kind of a DNS entry. So if in the DNS entry, you're going to have an A record. The A record may be pointing to the primary database, which is your on-prem. So if the on-prem fails, the A record gets changed to a standby mode or an instance which is in production in your GCP. Just change the A record immediately. Then your application will not have any issue itself because it's still going to use the DNS itself, right? So it's going to use app.example.com. So that is how you do it. VIP, basically, virtual IP. Does it make sense, Vivek? Usually use that VIP or DNS entry to do that. Basically, you update it. It's a virtual IP.
your voice was just lost. I mean, okay. So means I think we need to set up some monitoring
Yes,
system which automatically will trigger a script to change the DNS record. I think this is, or it will.
usually usually it is called as DNS cutover. So that kind of an option you can use to change your A record. Basically,
Okay, means it should not be happen automatically until we do any automation. I think so.
yeah,
This is
it will not happen automatically. You have to do something. You have to
some
do that setup.
logic
So
and
change the cutover. Or what you can have is when you configure DNS itself, right? Have two A records. Have two A records. One is your production, which is
hmm,
on-prem. The other one is your GCP. So and you keep your data always in sync. You keep your
hmm.
data always in sync. That's another option. Then you don't need to do anything. It's already having the entries. And
I,
also in GCP, you also have something called as an internal load balancer. You can also
so
use that option. So for databases, we'll talk about internal load balancer when we come to network.
okay. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Now, I guess it's our 17th class. Till now, we have seen always hello world example. It's so boring to see always hello world, hello containerization, hello app engine, hello cloud run. For the first time, because we know database concept now. So when database comes, we can definitely have a stateful application, meaning I write something, post something, it get persisted into a database. And even if I shut down the stuff or I can close my browser and open it back, the state is going to be persisted. So that's what we are going to see in the next demo, where we are going to have a two-tier application, a front end and a back end. The front end is going to be something which we learned already. So that's our app engine standard. Very specifically, app engine standard is our front end. The back end, which we just learned, cloud SQL for MySQL. This is what we are going to do. So we are going to have a two-tier architecture, folks. Simple, and we'll see how we can persist the information, and it's not going to be your hello world. I can assure you that it's going to be an interesting app. If you want to try it, you can also try it later. The code is already uploaded in the Google Drive, so you can get it. So you can see it how we are going to do it. So we have our MySQL instance already. So we need to have our app engine. So there's going to be some code required. You don't need to write the code. The code is already there. So assume a developer has written the code. You just need to see how it's going to do the connectivity. Now we are seeing two different services, App Engine and MySQL instance. Let's see how we can communicate and things are going to work. So a realistic demo. Okay. So for this purpose, let me just close all the unwanted screens. So for this purpose, if you are following the same way we are doing the demonstration, so go to your App Engine first. Go to your App Engine first and see whether the App Engine is enabled or not. When we were doing the App Engine demo, the last time when we did the App Engine demo, the last demo which we did was deploying a flexible instance, and afterwards we had disabled the app. So if it's not enabled, go enable it. So that's the first step which you have to do. The second thing is you have to deploy an application. So it's a library application, which is what we are going to deploy, which is going to have some books basically. So books is the one which helped us in the last year during those pandemic times. So books are going to be always helpful. So we are going to have a library. So we are going to have a library. So let me open up my Cloud Shell. Quit. The code is already there. I have already uploaded it into my Cloud Shell for simplicity reason. It is called as Cloud SQL demo. It is written in Node.js, folks. Most of our demos are going to be in Node.js only because it's lightweight. That's it. So let's not get into the code part at any chance. That's not our piece of cake. That's not our of interest. Somebody is going to write it for us, an application developer. Now the code is written in such a way that you just need to mention what is your what's your database, all those things. Usually when I worked as a cloud architect in one of the service-based organization, right, what usually happens is the developers are comfortable writing their code in their laptops, in the company provided laptop. They are very comfortable, so they will install an IDE like Eclipse, IntelliJ or Visual Studio, whatever it is, or Visual Code. They do everything there, but they want a database which is somewhere else, because two developers may be doing one part, two developers may be doing different parts, but they want a common database. So in this case, what I usually used to do is I used to start provisioning a dev environment, a development GCP project, and I will not provision anything in that project except a Cloud SQL instance. I just provision a Cloud SQL instance with the style, the same style which we did, and share the IP address with the or the credentials with the developer. So they are going to just connect it and see everything is working. So they are going to do a connectivity. So that is the same thing which we are going to do now. So treat your Cloud Shell as the developer's environment, and we already have a Cloud Shell. Cloud SQL instance. So we'll connect to that Cloud SQL instance and do all the development. Once we are comfortable that everything is good, we will deploy it into App Engine. So to deploy it into App Engine, you don't need anything extra. You just need this configuration app.yaml file. That's the only file which you need to add. Remaining everything is going to work as is. Okay, so this is the app code. We'll not look into the code part. What I need to do basically is I need to mention uh, the credentials of the database. So this is the database, all those things. Now you in your organization, you may have 20 developers. So if the developers needs to connect to Cloud SQL instance, what should you do, folks? With what we have learned so far, it has an external IP address. For now, forget about the internal IP address. We are going to use internal IP address later. It has an external IP address. It is in cloud. Your developers is in your corporate environment. So the developer should be able to connect to the Cloud SQL instance. What is the first step which you are going to do? What is the first step which you are going to do, folks? And there are 20 such developers. What will you do, folks? In this case, they should be able to connect to your instance. Whitelist your IPs. So 20 people's whitelisting you have to add. And it's going to be a little hectic, this thing. Get the IP from them and do it. So how many people I will add? It's going to be a hectic task. Is there any better way? Is there any better way is what we are going to see. So that is where we are going to use an option called as Cloud SQL proxy. So we are going to use a proxy tool and connect it. So again, going back to the connected authorized network, I'm going to remove everything, folks. I'm going to remove everything. And if we spend a good amount of time in the console itself, right, most our concepts gets cleared easily. So we saw whitelisting, how it works. We are not going to do further whitelisting, folks. We have done a good amount of demo with whitelisting. No need of any further whitelisting. So let's just wait for a minute for it to have this change done. The next option, one is having an authorized network. We explored that. The second option is using something called as Cloud SQL proxy. So if I just click on it, it's going to give me the complete details. You're going to get Cloud SQL proxy for MySQL, Postgres, Microsoft SQL Server. The advantage of this one is you don't need to do any whitelisting. Beautiful option. You don't need to do any whitelisting. Zero whitelisting. Only thing is that you ask the developer to run this proxy in his or her laptop. That's it. Job done. Job done. That's what. And how do you do that? Everything is mentioned in the documentation very nicely. So I'm just going to use the same thing. So first of all, I need to get my software installed. There's a tool which I need to install. Where is that tool? They have a software called as Cloud SQL Proxy, which you need to download first. Let me see whether I can get it from my, they change the documentation very often. Install. We have to install it. Yes, we have to install it. It's not going to be there. So we have to install it. Okay. I'm not sure whether it is here. Install, yeah, clouds install. Here it should be. This is how you are going to install it based on the laptop. Usually some developers will have Mac, some developers will have Windows, and very few people may have Linux. So depending on the developer's laptop, this thing OS, you can use it. I'm going to use Linux because I'm going to use Cloud Shell as my laptop. So what I will do is, yeah, whitelisting. There's no whitelisting. Only we are going to use what is that? A Cloud SQL proxy here. So how do I do it? I'll just show you. First of all, we have to install this client. So I'm just going to copy this, copy this. I will use this tab. So I just copy this, download it. I have my Cloud SQL.proxy and I need to execute it. So I'm going to change the permission to make it as an executable. So if you see the current permission is going to be 644. I'm going to use change mode and do it. So the permission should be now changed to 755. Basically, it's an executable. So either a user, a group, or anyone, everyone should be able to execute it. So what's the next command? So they are going to give it, how do I start my Cloud SQL proxy? So the way you start your Cloud SQL proxy is you open up a socket. So you need to mention the instance name, instance connection name, and in your local system, what is the IP you want to run it, in what on what port you want to run it is what you need to mention. So what's the connection name? You go to your Cloud SQL instance. You should be able to see your connection name. This is your connection name. Copy this. Go to your documentation. Now this is one of the coolest way of having a documentation, folks. I've not seen it in any other cloud, or maybe I've not explored it, but here in GCP, right, you just edit this, folks. Just edit this. Now this thing is going to get edited, and you can easily copy paste it from here. So this is a cool thing which they have done basically. So what you are going to do is basically run this, and you want to run it on which port? By default, MySQL runs on 3305, if I'm not wrong. That's the default port. So MySQL default port 3305. So 3305, okay, 3306. Okay, that's a default port 3306. Now I don't want to run it on that port in my local system. I'm going to run it in a port which I'm comfortable. So I'm going to run it at something like 9091 or 90, anything you can mention. As long as that port is available, you can use it. Okay, 9090 is my port. There's a typo, I'll just fix it. So I'm just copying it, folks. Now, one minute. So I'll copy it. Sorry, my copy paste is not working as expected. Copy this. Paste it. So it's going to create a connection and ready for new connection. So what does that indicate? So there's a proxy which is running in my local system, which is Cloud Shell, which is listening on port 9090, a weird port. I'm the developer. I'll decide what port I want to connect. Now, whitelisting is not done. So if you want to verify it, still there's no whitelisting. I'll just click on it and show you. There's no whitelisting. The whole beauty is we don't want to whitelist too many people. It's going to be an hectic task, whitelisting. So there's nothing done in the whitelisting part. It's still empty. Now, new connection is there. Now what I will do is, if I were to connect it from my developer machine, I'm going to use MySQL -h localhost, folks. I'm going to use my loopback address, localhost -u root -p. What this is going to happen is when I enter demo GCP and hit enter, it's going to show a new connection started, is what it should show. If you try to do without the port mentioning, it's going to try to connect to a local system. So this, if I do, it's going to throw me an error indicating there's no local MySQL instance running in port 3306, but you have a proxy running. So if you were to connect it, you can mention capital P 9090 -p. So there's an instance running somewhere else, but there's a proxy which is 9090 here. So now if I try to connect it to this, hit enter, I should see the connectivity done. And if we go to the other tab, you see a new connection is opened. Now, without whitelisting, I'm able to connect, folks. Are we in the real database? If you are having a doubt, I can show you we are in the correct database which we have connected to. Show databases. Now, if you still don't believe it, it's little fake. I can still prove that we are connected to our Cloud SQL instance, the Google Cloud Store, Google's Cloud SQL instance, the one which we provision. Maybe I can create a database for you. Create a database, Cloud SQL proxy. Just to indicate, done. Now, if you want to go look into your database section, you will see the database would be provisioned. So that should at least prove that we are using the proxy and it's connected to this instance only. Okay, so till here is it clear, folks? Without whitelisting also I can connect. If somebody asks, I don't want to whitelist too many people, is there an option? Yes, the developer or the client should run this proxy tool and they should be able to do it. So till here is it clear, folks? Till here is it clear? Now I will ask the developer to run this tool in his laptop, and he don't need to have any administrative access or anything. It's just an exe if it's a Windows machine. So they should be able to run it, and they should be able to run in their local system by just putting as if like there's a local server running in their system, database server, but the port should be different. Okay, so that is the stuff, folks. Till here, any questions, folks? As a developer, I can connect from my laptop and it's working without whitelisting. Password, we mentioned it. I just type -p and I have to mention that password here when it prompts. When it prompts, I have to do it. -p, capital P is for port, small p is for password. So slightly sometimes people may get confused. So different cloud will have, different database will have different options. So don't worry about it. Look into the documentation, you'll get it. Now I have things running. What I'm going to do now is, now it's time for my application development. So I need to do some application development. So what I'm going to do is basically go to my code. And the code is written in such a way that I just need to mention my connection string, the connection details, and I should be all good, folks. So the proxies tool is a process that translates a local DB call to a Cloud SQL. So what it does basically is, it's like exactly like your proxy. So you use your connection string where you have mentioned your connection instance connection name. It's going to send a request. It's going to resolve what is the external IP address there, and it's going to allow you. Basically, it's going to translate all your stuffs to that without you doing a whitelisting. Basically, a proxy tool. How any proxy tool works. Basically, the same way it works, Adarsh. So, can you ping the doc URL? What is the doc URL? Oh, documentation. Oh, sorry. And the steps are mentioned in our cheat sheet also. You can refer to it if you want. Now, the application, right? This is built by a very nice developer. So he has made our job so simple. You just need to mention whether the backend is Cloud SQL. And we are going to use the same demo later for something called as data store, folks. We'll use the same demo. So the backend can be two things. Either it could be a data store, which we have not even looked into it, or it could be Cloud SQL instance. So since we are exploring Cloud SQL instance, we mentioned that. And what is the project ID? Just mention it. What is the user name? Oh, sorry. What is the username? Root. And maybe the developer has not done a great job. We have to put the password in plain text. Maybe this could be improved. This could be an improvement, but for our demonstration, it is okay. What is the connection string? Let me mention that connection string details. I don't remember it. So if I just go to my Cloud SQL instance, copy this. This is my connection. That's it. Remember, the code never mentions the IP address. I'm actually relying on the connection string name. So the project ID is mentioned, username, password, all those things. And what is this port? This is my web application. My web application listens on 8090, a different port. As a developer, I want to run my app in a different port. My database connection is going to be 9090. My application is going to run on 8090. That's it. Only these changes is what I have to do, folks. So great job done by the developer. Just put the connection string, it's going to work, is the understanding. So done, save it. This is done. And since this is a Node.js application, usually the Node.js application will have some dependencies, all those things. So like if you have any dependencies in your Python, you use pip install. Similarly, in Node.js, you use a package manager called as npm. And again, you don't need to get into these details, but for me to show the demonstration, I have to run this. So this is going to be usually done by a developer. So npm install. So this is going to install all the dependencies, maybe to connect to a database, what are the dependencies required, what are the modules required. It's going to do all those things. Done. There are some vulnerabilities. If you want, we can fix it, but that's not our piece of cake here. So that's more on application side. The developer will look into it, so I don't need to worry much about it. If you want to fix it, you can run this npm audit fix all those things. So let's not get into that part. That's more of application side. Now what happens, right, when I do npm install, the necessary modules are going to be downloaded to connect to a Cloud SQL instance, do all those things. So everything is now ready, folks. Now everything is ready, and this is a web application. Now, if you have worked on developing web applications, at least in the past, right? At least in the past, people used to do something like, before you deploy the app, you should create the schema, the database schema. Now we have not even created a database schema. How an app is going to run? So either you create your schema ready, then connect it, or sometimes some app has that capability. The first time when you connect the app to the database, it's going to create an schema. This is not a modern one, so modern one. So we have to create a schema. How do we create the schema? Let me show you that. First, I'll just show you what are the databases which we have. Minus u root minus p 9090. You can leave space or without space also you can do, folks. Both are going to work. Both are going to work. Leaving space will definitely confuse. Without space is going to be a good choice. So currently when I do show databases, only these databases what exist. Now there's a script which this code has been written. When I run that, it's going to create a new database for me and a new table. The schema is going to be created. So for that, I don't remember the command, so I have to refer to my cheat sheet only, which you can also refer. So we are doing this part of the demo. So you can look into the cheat sheet. You see the same stuff which we are doing. So got the proxy, connected it. Then you people need to download your zip file from your Google Drive, which I have shared it. To create the bookshelf, this thing, right? You have to run this command, which is going to create a schema there. So I'm just going to copy this and create a schema. So I got disconnected. So this is going to do what? Create a schema, a database, and a table is going to create. So hit enter. It's going to prompt for the username, root, password. Okay, something did not work. Fine. What happened? There was a connection, so it did not connect even. Oh, I'm just getting disconnected. Root demo user. Okay, it's trying to connect to port this thing. So it's trying to connect to a local system. What happened? Let me see the nodes, folks. We installed it, changed the mode. We are running on. Oh, it requires it to run in this port only. We could have done that. Okay, let me run it in the same port, at least for the demonstration purpose. So what I will do is close the connection for a minute. Close the connection. I'll run it in 3.3. So maybe the code, I have to do the code change. So for that purpose, anyway, in my local system, nothing is running in 3306. I'm going to run the proxy again in 33064. Maybe the code expects it to be in that's it. That's the only reason. Now the connection is ready. Connection is ready. Now let me run this script, which is going to basically create a schema, necessary table details. Root demo GCP schema created. What does that indicate? If you just log into your this thing, if you remove this, I can also explicitly mention the port. If I don't mention the port, it's going to be default as that. So now if I do show databases, you should see a new database called as bookshelf. We did not create it. The script created it. Now, if you're curious to know what is there inside this database, use bookshelf. And all these things you don't need to do. But to show the complete stuff, I have to show you that. That's the reason I'm doing this. Now, show tables. There's only one table called as books. If I do select star from books, semicolon, it's an empty table. So there's nothing here. So it's an empty table, meaning you have to insert the data. It did not create the schema. It created the schema, Anil. So it created the schema. So if you see here, running the script as per the documentation, so it created the schema successfully. So even if you go here, you should see a new connection established. The schema was created. Schema was, it created the table, a database, and it created the database, table also, but the table is empty. Yes, the table is empty, but only the schema details of the table is created. So if you want to describe the table, there is a command called as describe books. It's going to show this table is going to have basically what is the schema. So what kind of data you can insert into a table. The table can have an ID, an author, publication date, all those things. Basically, that is your schema of your table. What kind of data you can insert it. That's the stuff. Does it make sense, Anil Kumar? So it's just what kind of data you can fit in, basically. Now we have the schema, the table, everything is configured. Now it's only running the application, folks. You just need to run the application, then you should be all good. So how do I run the application? Again, this is going to be specific to a application, what kind of application you are running, whether it is Node.js, .NET, PHP, it's going to vary based on the stuff. So since we have a Node.js application, I can run something called as npm start. This is going to vary from language to language. Here it's going to be npm start. When I do it, it shows the app is listening on 8090. Now we know how to preview it. Click on your preview button. We have used this in our Kubernetes class itself. Change the port to 8090 and click on preview. And for the first time, if everything is good, you should see a nice page apart from that boring hello world. So now this is the page, folks. What is this? A bookshelf. So which is running in my local Cloud Shell machine. Now I can add a book. I can add a book, the favorite book which helped me to clear most of my engineering interview. This thing is Let Us See. I guess everybody would have read this book if I'm not wrong. So Let Us See. The author, if I'm not wrong, is Yashwant Kanetkar. I like this book a lot. I don't remember the publication date, so I'm going to just make it as I studied during this time. I'm just going to make something like this, folks. Awesome C book. Now, when I do this, what's going to happen basically is the data gets persisted. This is where the stateful application comes into picture. The data gets persisted into a database, specifically in the table. Now, if I just run this table, currently it is 0, no records there. But the moment I go and click on save, the data is going to be saved into my database. You want to see it? Just go and query it. It's going to show the information which you inserted. Now I close this app, open it again, it's going to come up. It's stateful versus a stateless application. Does that make sense, folks? From my application, I have persisted an information, not via a program, not by directly inserting the code. So I have done it via a program, an application. So now it's an indication that my bookshelf application is working fine. Running in my local system, connecting to a Cloud SQL instance, it is working fine. Now the only step left is deploy this into App Engine, and it's going to work easily. So let's try to do that. What I will do is Control C. My app is running fine, so I don't need anything more. Now I want to deploy this into my App Engine standard. So that's the reason I have this app.yaml configuration. So where I mentioned Node.js 10, the instance class, instead of F1, I'm using F2. Slightly a powerful machine, 256 MB of RAM should be provided. Now, how do I deploy it into App Engine, folks? What is the command? Do you remember it? The command to deploy it into App Engine. Can I do it in UI? Can I do it in command line? How do I do it? What's the command, folks? Do you remember it? Yes, gcloud app deploy. And I'm going to mention it as bookshelf. And let's put time to see how fast it does. We know App Engine standard gets deployed faster, less than 2 minutes. Let's see again whether it's going to work. And I don't want any prompts. I'm going to make it as -q. So hit enter. And let's see whether it's going to get deployed. Once it gets deployed, we should have a URL. If the URL, if everything goes everything goes as expected, we should have a web application running fully, and you people can also access it. You can insert the data via the application, the bookshelf application. Let's wait for that. The steps are in yes, Deepak. So if you just open the cheat sheet, you have a demo 3, install bookshelf. So first install your client, change the permission, run it, then open a new tab. Everything is mentioned, and this is slightly a demo which involves application also. So that's the reason I have mentioned it very clearly what you need to do. So you should be able to get it. It's in the cheat sheet. So let's wait for a minute or so. Once it comes up, we should be all good to test it out. It's not in the real implementation. It's in the normal cheat sheet. This is nothing to do with the real implementation. So this is our learning. So you have 3 cheat sheets, right? The first cheat sheet, which is a very common one. So that is where you should see. It's taking longer time. Should be there almost. Or I can just minimize it. Yeah, it is almost there. Yeah. Maybe more than 2 minutes this time. Okay, 2 minutes, 9 seconds, acceptable. Acceptable. Now the URL if you want to know the URL, you can type this command gcloud app browse, or also it is shown here. So gcloud app browse. This is going to be your URL. Now, if I click on it, it's going to show me the application running if things are all fine. Good. Now, this is the link, folks. I'm just going to paste it in your chat. But before you start using this app, just answer me one question. Why this information is already there? Let us see Yashwant Kanetkar. How it came. What I did was, before deploying it to cloud, I tested it in my local system. There I inserted it. But here, how it came even in my application without me doing anything. Why it came? Any reason? Any reason why it came here? Anil B, that's correct. Anybody else wants to do it? The thing was, you are really working on the real DB via proxy. Absolutely correct. Anil B and Vivek got it correctly. Thing is that the backend was the same when I was working as a developer. The backend is in Cloud SQL. It is the same data. Yeah, it's not like dev and prod. So it's a dev environment only. But I was doing my development in my laptop. I connected to Cloud SQL instance. Now I have moved it to development GCP project. So even the product, the data DB is the same. That's what I have mentioned in the configuration. So that's the reason I see the same data. And also this is an indication of stateful application. Now go ahead, folks, use your application, and it's not your boring hello world anymore. You can add data and see how it works. Your choice, which book you like, you can add it. The next book which I like is Java complete reference. I don't remember the name, Smid or John. I don't remember the author name. I'm just going to mention as author. Um, okay, Patrick. Okay, thank you. I'm just going to mention it as any date, and there's no validation done, folks. The date is actually a string field in the database, so there's no validation. You can put it in right whatever the format. Uh, Something like Java uh, reference for beginners. That's the stuff. Save it. Let me see, is there any more entry done? So if I click on books, I see good amount of entries already done by folks. So now if you want to see whether it is persisted in your database, yes, it's going to be there. So run, I see 3 entries. Now you see a 2-tier application running in your GCP completely, and it is stateful. I close it, come back, do again, it's going to be there. That's the important thing. So going back to the slides, any questions on what we did, folks? So it's a 2-tier, so everything is now running perfectly fine in our cloud environment, and you can also test it. Let me see, is there any more entries which you have added? 4th entry added, project. So if I just click on this, project management, ABC, the author. Good. If you want to edit it, you can edit it also. You can also do edit. So let us see, Ashwant Kanetkar, maybe okay, let me not edit this one. Let me edit complete reference. Complete reference for beginners. Sorry. I can also do update. This is basically an update in your database. So if I see it, it's going to show. I see good amount of entries done by people. So you see the application is real, folks. It's real, and you can also query it from the backend and see there are 5 rows. 5 rows. Now, any questions before I ask you a question? Any questions on this part? 2-tier architecture, the most simplest version which you can have. Yet it's not a hello world. Clear? Okay. Now, if it's clear, the question for you now is basically what's wrong with this architecture? So what could be the issue with this architecture? Now, this is architecture related question. That's where we will jump into. What happens if the bookshelf app becomes very popular and more read happens? It's a bookshelf, right? So people want to read at least a preview. Now, assume this is going to, many people are going to request for read. Maybe they are not going to purchase the book, but at least read is happening very much. What's going to happen? Scalability problem will come. What are the two components which you have? Only a front end, which is app engine, and a database. Which component is going to have the major impact? Now, too many people hitting the website. Assume the website is, what's going to be the impact? The impact is going to be your SQL, right? The impact is going to be your SQL instance. Will the impact happen to your app engine, folks? Any issue with your app engine? Why? Is it a different animal? Yes, it's going to have auto scaling because it's an app engine standard. Yes, Deepak, Vivek, Anil got it correctly. Anil B. So because your app engine standard is serverless, Google will take care. Even if you put thousands of requests, we will have more instances running. But the problem is only one database in Singapore. You are going to have uh, the number of throughput is going to be reduced, and you will have latency issues. So the problem is going to be front end is serverless, so no problem. The back end is a managed service, and it's only in a specific zone, so it's not going to scale. So what the solution which we are going to use in this case is something called as vertical scalability, not horizontal scalability, folks, vertical scalability, because many people are doing read. They're reading the books. They wanted to upscale their skills. So they are reading lots of read operation is happening. So that's where we are going to vertically scale this Cloud SQL instance. So for that, we have an option called as cross region read replica, meaning nobody's going to purchase the book. They're going to read everything online, maybe the preview of the books. So what we can do is we can have something called as cross region read replicas, have more read replicas. I have my master in this diagram in maybe, what is this actually, what location, someplace. So you have a master in Singapore, and you can have read replicas in multiple regions. This way the throughput is going to increase. So that's what we are going to see. So how do I create a read replica? Very simple. Go to your Cloud SQL instance. Go to your Cloud SQL instance. Click on read replica. Simple. Let's create a read replica maybe in London, folks. We'll create a read replica in London. So read replica 1. Version will not be changed because it's a read replica. Now, I want my read replica in London because I understand from the traffic, more people from London are reading my this thing. Now, it's going to be always a single zone. It's going to be a single zone. Why? Because it's a read replica, folks. Only read operations can happen. Write operations cannot happen. Remember that. So read replica, then if you want any specific configuration, maybe from London more people are hitting, so maybe I want to make this instance little powerful, you can do it, or you want to keep the same configuration as your master, it's your choice. It's your choice. So, and public IP can be removed or disabled if you want. Private IP has to be there because your master is having private. So that's it. Just create a read replica, so easy, in a different region altogether. Let me click on create replica. This is going to take again 5 minutes or 7 minutes for the instance to get created. So if I just go here, the visualization is going to be really nice. So the visualization, so it's going to see, and it shows some being updated, but if you connect to the instance, it should still work. There should not be any issues. So if I just see it, it works. it works as usual, but there is going to be a read replica happening. So I have a read replica getting created, but my instance is going to continue working as usual. You can give a try also. Add a book if you want. Read replica. Author GCP. Save. Data gets saved. So my master is not even impacted. Please remember that. So if I see where is that, it is there. So what's going to happen behind the scene is I'm going to create a read replica in London, where my stuff, basically the more read operations can be allocated. So it's going to take some time. So let's wait for it to come. By the time we wait, we can take a 10 minutes break. So once we come back, we should have a new entry just right below this saying that this is a read replica, which belongs to the main server. And this read replica, you cannot do any updates, deletes. It's only to read more reads. Okay. So let's take a 10 minutes break. Once we come back, we'll explore how read replica really synchronizes the data. That's the most important thing. Just having a read replica, no use. If I do some changes to the master, instantaneously it should be replicated. That is where the importance comes into picture. We'll see how the replication works once we come back from the break. So take a break and come back, folks.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right, before the break, we saw the importance of cross region read replicas, and we have just provisioned it. Let's see whether it has been provisioned successfully or not by just looking into our console. So if I just go to my console, nothing has happened. Did it fail? Let me just refresh the screen, folks. It should usually show a read replica here. Let me just see it. And also hear it from Vivek that it was one of his interview questions. Possible, yeah. So it's a possible thing, yeah. Now we have our stuff, folks. This is a read replica. Now, if I just remove type, okay, let it be there. Type should be important. Okay, let it be there. So here, if you see, the master is in uh, Singapore B zone, and your read replica is in London A zone. A zone. That's the thing. So now let me try to connect it. Let me try to connect to this instance. And few things which I wanted to show. A very important thing. People with DB background will definitely appreciate it to a great extent. The synchronization part of it, how the data gets synchronized. So now let me go and whitelist one more time, one last time. I'm going to whitelist my Cloud Shell IP. For a small demonstration, I need to whitelist it. So 35.0.0.0/8, and one more is 34. If you want, you can also try to connect it. You're free to connect. Save it. And this whitelisting, right? If you just do it for your master, even for your read replica, it's going to apply, folks. Even for your read replica, it's going to apply. Let me just show you that. So the master is getting updated with the changes which we just did. Let's wait for that to have an update. By the time it comes, if I go to my read replica, there's going to be the connection part of your read replica. It's going to, oh, it's a different one. I thought it was the same thing. Okay, it's okay. I have to add it. Let me add it. So I was under the impression it's going to be same. No problem. Let me add that whitelisting. So they changed it maybe. So 35. I'm just adding a couple of whitelistings for a specific reason to show you a demo of data synchronization or replication, to be very frank. Save it. So I have whitelisted my all our Cloud Shell IPs. So, and this is a replication instance, replica. So let me go to my home screen. So I'm just going to paste the IPs for your reference. If you want, you can connect to this instance. The master is this one. The master is this one. Read replica is this one. Now, what I'm going to do is have two connections, folks. I'm going to have two connections basically. MySQL minus H 34.87.4.41 minus U root minus P, password is demo GCP. I'm there. I'm there. One more tab where I connect to my read replica. So MySQL minus H minus U. You can leave space or without space also, it's okay. Minus P demo GCP. I'm also in the what is that? I'm also in my read replica. I have logged in. The first tab is the master. The second tab is my read replica. So I'll just switch to that database, Word database. Here also, I'll switch to my Word database. Okay, so I'm there. What I cannot do in master, what I can, what I cannot do in read replica, I wanted to show you. So if I go to my master, I do select. This is master, folks, the first tab. Select star from city, limit 10. Now, because I'm in the master, I can do updates, delete, insert. I can do that very easily. So let me just try to do one update the population, or update, or why don't I create a table? I'll do update later. So create database called as master or read replica demo. Create database. Okay, thank you. Create database read replica demo. I can do it because I'm in the master. If I do the same thing in my read only replica, I cannot do it. Let me just show you. So I'm just going to do create database read replica. It shows the MySQL server is running with -- super read only option. So you cannot execute the statement, but I can do select. I can do select. It's going to work like a charm. It works. Read only operations works. Write operations like creating a database, inserting a data, updating a data, deleting a data is not going to work. Okay, so the DML, data manipulation stuff is not going to work. Only our select statements are going to work. So is this part first clear, folks, between read replica and the master? Is this part clear, folks? The read replica and master. That's the first part which I wanted to show as a difference. Uh, yes, no. Awesome. Thank you. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you one important stuff, folks, with respect to the metrics. So for that, let me click on my master. And when I go to my master, there's going to be a specific metrics which I can use. Where's that? Where do I see that? Uh, 1 minute. The UI gets changed here itself. Sorry. This is my metrics. The CPU utilization, and there are lots of stats. Storage utilization. These are some of the metrics. This comes from something called as stack driver monitoring, now called as cloud operations. You see lots of such metrics, folks. And the last thing which you see is active connections. How many of you have connected? Basically, that's what it's going to indicate. Now, the last metrics which you see in your master or the primary instance is active connection. Now, let me go back to my read-only replica. Read-only replica and look at the same metrics. What I see along with my last the last option, which was active connection, I also see one more metrics, replication lag. How much is the read replica lagging with respect to the data replication? Whether it is zero is an ideal condition, folks. The moment you do the changes in your master, it's going to reflect in your read only replica. That is going to indicate. Now you see it, the replica is almost zero, folks. There's no lag itself. The moment you add your data, it is replicating. Currently, the replication lag is zero. This is the awesome feature which you can, or the good thing which you are going to have in a database. If there's no lag, my whatever I do, my changes in my master is going to reflect in my read-only replica also. So meaning the people reading it from London are going to have a better experience, at least in this context. Now, to show you really the replication is zero, I wanted to show you a small demonstration. So what we are going to do now is we are going to do some updates. So we are going to do some updates. So I'm going to keep it ready. The second tab is your read replica. The first tab is your write master. So what I'm going to do is select star from. So the replica would be in any region and the sync is immediate. That's what you're going to see it. That's what you're going to see, Deepak. Um, select star from population. So city, sorry. Limit 5. Currently the population is this one. Now assume this, everybody knows the population keeps increasing. Now let me do an update. Update city table, set population equal to the current population, and don't worry about the syntax which I'm typing or the SQL command. If you're not comfortable, no problem. So let me make the population as 20,000 for all the rows. This is what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this and immediately go and hit. So why this goes like this? So I'll just type this itself. Select star from city. I have not hit enter yet, folks. So 5. I'm just going to keep it ready just to show you that it's really syncing immediately. I'm not from a database background. With the limited knowledge which I know, I'm showing you this part. Replication is happening quickly. And you see the master is in Singapore and the read-only replica is in London. So now you will really like to see that how fast the network between Singapore data center and London data center is. You'll really appreciate it. So now hit enter. 4,000 rows updated. Now you see it, folks. You see Kabul was 18 10. Now it is 1830. Remaining everything is plus 20. Replication is so instantaneous. So instantaneous. And I'm not conveying a wrong message here. It's not always going to be 0. Our database is very small. So very small, but a replication lag of something like 10 milliseconds or 30 milliseconds or even a minute is okay, is what I would say. Maybe DBA can comment much better here. So, but the replication is really working fine. And it's London to Singapore, you will really see how far it is. And the credit goes to Google's network, folks. Only Google can do something like this because they are using their private network. Now, let me do one more time. Maybe I did a typo. It was not plus 20. It should be only plus, I have to reduce 10,000. Let me just do this and also keep it ready here. So select star from city limit. Now, when I do it, it should be 1820, 28, sorry, 27, 22, 16, 77. That should be the entry, folks. So let me just do one more update. Done. You see that? That's what I would say, like the magic of Google's network, folks. More on our networking, we'll definitely look into it, but this is a hint to show that how the replication happens. And you can really see the replication lag is 0 in this case. You see that blue line? It shows the lag is 0. Something like how much lag you can afford. This is going to be the service level agreement which you're going to do with your customer. Depending on that, you can see if there's something more lag, definitely you have to bring in a DBA. You have to bring in a DBA and he can comment much better, more than we as a cloud architect. Okay, so is this part clear, folks, about the replication? And it can replicate so super fast because it uses internally Google's network. Awesome. Thank you for the confirmation, folks. Now, let's create some more trouble. So only when you create troubles, you'll get more exposure. So looks all fine. Now, what if, and just an hypothetical scenario, what if the entire region goes down, folks? So currently the database is in Singapore. Now, if the entire Singapore region goes down due to some natural calamity, due to some asteroid hitting something, the entire region goes down. So what will happen to your master? What will happen to your master? It cannot fail over to another zone also because it's a regional or it's basically a zonal resource. Now, in this case, what you can do basically is if the complete region is whitewashed, you can make your read replica as a master. Yes, Deepak, you can do it, but it is not automatic. You have to go and manually do it. So how do I do it? Click on your read replica. You have this option, promote replica. Promote the replica as a master. It is possible, but you have to understand the reality here. The thing is that a complete region has gone down and you should not expect in few milliseconds I'll have the other region working. Reality is not that. So you have to expect more downtime. The reason is it's going to have a different IP address. You will not retain the same IP address. The IP address which you are seeing, these are all regional IP address. So you have to definitely go and change your application, the client. You have to change, okay, the IP address is this one. You have to do that. So there's going to be a longer downtime for your application. Remember that. Okay, that's the reality. The moment you promote your master as your read replica as the replica master, what's going to happen? Promoting a read replica stops replication and converts the instance into a standalone instance. It is going to be an independent instance. No more further replication is going to happen. So to avoid loss of data before promoting the replica, you should verify the replica has applied all the transaction received from the primary. So make sure everything is replicated, then only promote it. If you promote it, let me just promote it. If I just promote it, what's going to happen basically it's going to get separated from the master and it's going to become a master node all on its own, all on its own. So is this part clear, folks? Now it's totally a new instance. Now you connect to it and start working as usual. So this is how the read replica and promoting a read replica works. Any questions on this part, folks? Any questions on this part? Now, two different instances. That's it. Two different instances. It's working fine. Now, one last question before we proceed further. Now, it's a different instance altogether. It's in London, but there's no high availability turned on. You want to turn it on, you can turn it on if you want. Now, we had an issue like this. Previously, the system, there was lots of read requests. We created read replicas. Awesome. Job done. Now, after an year, our bookshelf application has become very popular. Word of mouth, lots of positive things. Say they are saying the books in this library is really awesome. Everybody starts recommending our library. Now, instead of just reading, people are purchasing books. So there's going to be a transaction. There's going to be a transaction happening. So in which database the transaction is going to happen, folks? It's going to be in master, because master is the only one which is can do read and write both. Read replicas can only read. So if after an year our library application becomes very popular, many transactions are happening. But my configuration is not so not enough. What is the configuration which I have? If I go to my master, no, the configuration is vCPU and memory and the storage totally. So one vCPU, 3.75 GB RAM, 10 GB of storage. Now people are saying your bookshelf is really good, library is really good, but when I do a transaction, right, it is very slow. Sometimes it is connection failure, all those things. Can you increase this? Now, if that is a question, and also this has a map to the number of connections which you can open. So if I just open up Cloud SQL GCP quota, how much connections you can open quota, you can to know from this documentation. I'll just put this in the chat. So this I faced in real implementation. So what was that is if it's a MySQL instance, right? If it is something like N1 standard, so if it is F1 micro, the number of connections, concurrent connections which you can open to the database, it's going to be 250. G1 small, 1000. And the maximum which you can have is 4000 connections open. So at the time, 4000 connections are open to your database. That's what you can do. That's the max. If it comes to Postgres, for different machine types, they have different connections. So in one of the implementations which I did, it was Postgres. And the developers were saying, we are doing a load testing. Developers and the testing team, they told we are doing load testing. They were putting a huge load. And definitely the database was slowing down. So I had to increase the machine type there. So if I remember it properly, it was around this much memory is what I increased, around 15 GB or something. So 400 connections, we increased it. Now, there is something which they can do at the database level, at the infrastructure level, and some few things which they can do at the application side. So they cannot fully rely on the infra. So I told them, and they were not doing this actually. So the team was not doing this. So they were opening up all the 400 connections. So what I suggested them that is, because I come from a developer's background, so I told you can use something called as database. This is something which you can recommend, folks. Connection pool. You create a pool. If you have 400 connections, you should not open all 400. Just only take 100 connections. Do a pooling between them only. Then it's going to make your database very stable. So I gave them this suggestion. They used, and they were doing it in Java. So they used a library and they were able to do it. So database connection, this is going to be done at the application side. What you can do at the infrastructure as a cloud architect is increase the machine type. So if you were to increase the machine type, I remember this was a question which Vivek asked last time. I want to increase the machine type from one VCP to two vCPU. What's going to happen, folks? What's going to happen if when you do an increase the machine type, what's going to happen? Can I increase the machine type with zero downtime? Is a question everybody is going to ask. Answer is no. You cannot at least increase the machine type, at least in Cloud SQL instances for MySQL, Postgres, or Microsoft SQL Server. Without downtime, I cannot increase the machine type. There's going to be a downtime. Please remember it, because it is at the end running on a virtual machine. If it's running on a virtual machine, basically to change the machine type, you have to shut it down. The same logic is going to be applied here. So let's just change the connection machine type. I want to slightly make it powerful. Click on edit and change the machine type. Let's make it little powerful. 2 vCPU, 7.5 GB of RAM. Now I wanted to open my connection here. Just keep it ready so I am able to connect to my master database. What I'm going to do is I'm going to update the machine type and show you that there's going to be a downtime. So change it. Click on save. When I click on save, right, there's a prompt, and all those things which I'm showing can be done even in a command line, folks. Only for simplicity reason I'm showing it to you in the UI. So change requires restart. One or more changes you have selected requires your instance to be restarted. Restarting will shut down the instance. Very clear, folks. uh, the, the interviewer, if you is asking when you want to change the want to increase the capacity of your Cloud SQL instance, can I do it without downtime? That is only to check your understanding. If you say no, yes, without downtime I can do, it's an he will get an understanding that you don't know Cloud SQL instance concept. There's going to be a downtime. That's the reality. So let me click on save and start. So it is edited. Now let me try to connect here and see what's going to happen. It's working. It's working still. I'm just querying it, folks. Working, working, still working, still working. So it's still not down. The instance is still being there. It's not down. Still there. Still there. Am I on the right database? Exit and try connecting it one more time. Still there. Okay. Show databases. Am I in the right database, folks? Downtime is going to be there. Let me just check the database IP. Did I use the right one? Okay, now you see it. It's in progress. Now you see it is failing. It's not connecting now. It's not connecting. So still not there. Trying to connect. Trying to connect. Still not there. So you see there's going to be downtime. There's going to be a downtime. So I'll try to connect from here. Still not able to connect. We have to wait for it. There's downtime. There's one interesting question in the chat. During the upgrade, cannot we redirect the user traffic for read-only operations to read replica? Possible to do it. It's going to be automatic. You don't need to do anything. It's going to be automatic. It's going to still work basically. Only the write operations are not going to happen. So write operations are going to not happen. So maybe we could have done that, but I switch or promoted my read replica to master. So give a try, Anilbi. So if you are going to do the similar demo yourself, when you have the read replica, upgrade it. Then go to your app and you should see the app is going to still work. Okay, so it should work per my understanding. So it should work. So it's going to take time to come up. So usually the down and coming up, it's going to take time. So we have to wait for that to come. Basically, we have to wait for that. It's still not there. Still not there. So that's sort something which we tried, folks. So that's what we tried now. Now the last thing, if I say from morning till almost 3 hours, whatever we did is not one of the best practices, you will definitely blame me. You wasted our time, Mahesh, is what you would say. The whole purpose why I did not directly jump into a private IPS, I wanted you to get used to Cloud SQL instance. So, but one of the best practices is a database should never ever have a external IP, folks. That's the best design which you are going to do as a cloud architect. I wanted to give you an idea how you do connectivity, all those things. But as you progress, prefer to use always internal IP address or private IP address. The reason is there's no vulnerabilities. Now, if you have, say, for example, a database with external IP address, there could be the smartest person in the world, the hacker, who can somehow get it because you have somehow whitelisted it either using IP spoofing, whatever it is, he can. There are good masterminds in the world, they can somehow get into it. But if I make myself private, it's going to be very difficult unless he enters my network, right? So having a Cloud SQL instance with the private IP address is going to be the best option, the best option. And that's what we are going to explore now. Okay, for security purpose, always prefer to use internal IP. So how do we do it? We have already configured it. We just need to use it and do it. That's it. So let's just leverage that. The instance is still not yet up. The instance is still not up. We have to wait. We have to wait for this to come. Now, any thoughts, folks? How do we connect to this internal IP? Any thoughts? Just out of curiosity, what would be the thing? So if they have given you a choice to connect, oh, now the instance is up. It is up, but it is still, if I just see, I guess it is up. It is up. Can I just refresh this? The app is there. I'm just going to delete my read-only replica entry just to see whether the transactions are happening. Okay, it's happening. The database is up. Database is up. If you want to see the machine type, it is going to show you the details. 2 vCPU, 7.5 GB of RAM, folks. That's good. That's good. Now, coming back to the question, no more public IP address. Say bye-bye to your external IP address. How do you connect to your private IP address? First of all, I'm going to disable my external IP address. Just to show you, we are going to start looking into private IP address more effectively right from now. So what I will do, click on the Cloud SQL instance. People are saying Bastion host, jump box, possible options. Those are the possible options. So let me edit the VM instance. Now, what I'm going to do is under connections, I cannot disable private IP, folks. Once enabled, that's it. But I can disable my external IP. The moment I remove external IP address, no more authorization, no more Cloud SQL proxy. That's not going to work. So that's not going to work. Basically, click on save. So now what I'm doing is I'm modifying my database to have only internal IP, no more external IP. So if I just go to my proxy, I saw something like connecting using private IP something. I saw something. Let me just see it. I'm just waiting for the instance to get updated. Use a IP with private IP. So to connect a Cloud SQL using private must be on a resource with the same VPC. Okay, you must provide the following option when you start the proxy, private IP. Okay, so let's wait for it to come. This is the option, folks. You don't have an external IP address. So if you don't have the option of external IP address, the option of whitelisting all goes off. Now you cannot connect a to a Cloud SQL instance from Cloud Shell anymore. From Cloud Shell, you cannot connect it anymore. The reason is it does not have an external IP address. So you have to use the internal IP address. First of all, can I connect from Cloud Shell to my app, my Cloud SQL instance? Answer is no, because these are in two different networks. We'll talk more about networking later. But Cloud Shell and your Cloud SQL instance are in two different networks, basically. And that's one of the reasons why we cannot use directly this internal IP address. We cannot use this internal IP address. And you may ask, can I use proxy, Cloud SQL proxy? Possible. It does not show me that. Cloud SQL proxy. Whenever you use Cloud SQL proxy by default, right, it always relies on external IP address, folks. Let me just show you. First, I'm showing you the options of connecting to it. So only we have internal IP address. Whether it is internal or external, you are going to have basically a instance connection name. So if I just do this, so what's happening currently is I'm open my Cloud SQL proxy to this connection with, is there a mush typo here? Oh, there's a white space. If I just do Control C, I'm just going to show you without an external IP address. If you use SQL proxy, what's going to happen is you will not be able to connect it. Let me just show you that. The proxy is running with your instance connection name. If you use MySQL -h localhost minus -p 1234 is the port, minus P. It's not going to connect. It's not going to connect because it's not having an external IP address. If you just use the proxy as is, it's not going to work. But there's an option which they are saying to connect using the proxy, you have to use this flag. An additional flag, if you mention private IP at hyphen private types equal to IP, where you have to mention the private IP there. You can mention this is what they are mentioning. Let me give a try, folks. Let me give a try. Connection connected, but it's going to show I cannot resolve the IP. So we have to wait for a minute here to see the error. Or I'll just disconnect. Anyway, it's not going to connect. You see that connection is lost. So I'll just use Cloud SQL proxy hyphen instances. That's the one, followed by what? This flag should be there. 1 minute, folks. Let me just look at the cheat sheet. So equal to TCP port. Okay. Equal to TCP. Something like 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me run it in something like high port 9090. If I do this, it's again going to rely on a public IP address. So instead of that, as per the documentation, they are saying if you put hyphen private type equal to the private IP address, it should work. So let me just copy this. I've never tried this. I'm also trying it for the first time. Ten dot 65.192.2. So this is ready. This is ready. Now let me go to the other tab. So it is now port 9090. Not sure whether I have mentioned it correctly. Okay, what is that shows? Could not connect. Input IP does not match the instance type equal to private. I have to type and address. I have to just type private is what it indicates. Oh, I have to just type it as private. Okay, that was the meaning. Okay. So I have to just type it as private. Okay. That's a good one. That's a good one, right? Good. Not sure whether it's changed. That's what the documentation says. I have tried only that. If both instances have private public, you want the okay, you must provide. No. Okay, the documentation is slightly different here. To connect to a Cloud SQL instance using private, there must be a resource with this. The proxy uses IP to establish a connection with Cloud SQL instance. By default, the proxy attempts to connect to public IPv4. If your instance has private only, the proxy uses the private address to connect. If the instance has both, you can configure. Where will I mention the private IP? Maybe, I guess you have to somewhere mention the IP if I'm not wrong. I'm not sure. Are we missing something? Are we missing an option here? You can use the private IP to connect cloud. if your cloud has only the proxy user's private IP address to connect, but it's not connecting. It's not connecting. Okay, I'll explore this, folks. You can also explore it. Just seeing the documentation doing it. So it's not connecting. Maybe I'm doing a mistake, but the documentation is saying something. What I'll do is I'll just disconnect it. One of the options which I can show you, which works easily, is, as most of you mentioned, have a jump host, create a virtual machine, use a virtual machine and connect it. Simple. So what I'll do is create a virtual machine. The thing is that the system is in the Cloud SQL instance is in Singapore. I'll purposely create a virtual machine in US Central. Purposely created in US Central just to show you that the jump host can be anywhere, but it has to be in the same network, default network. And we have only one network so far, so it should be okay. So I'll call it as MySQL client. Purposely going to do it in US Central, very far. So I may need a better system and one standard. That's it, folks. Default setting, just go ahead and create it. Instance is ready. Let me SSH into it. I just go back to my SQL instance. Okay, the SQL instance is there. So let me increase the font for a better visibility. Yes. Now this is where again you will appreciate Cloud Shell much better than a normal virtual machine. To connect it from my terminal, I need a MySQL client, right, folks? I need a MySQL client. But in a normal Debian operating system, the latest so-called Debian operating system, which is the default OS which Google provisions, will not have a client. So you have to install this. You may say just installing, right? What a big deal. Even that is going to be a big deal for an architect because he needs to just quickly test it out. So you have to install this. But your Cloud Shell comes with lots of tools ready-made. So let's install this. Let me update the package. Done. So let me install the client. The client for this has to be something like MariaDB client. So this is the client, folks. I got this after Googling it out. So you can also, if you want a specific version on Debian 10, right, you have to use a MariaDB client only. So I just searched it and got it, nothing else. And this is not our interest area also. So just searched, I got it. Now if I run MySQL client, which gave no client exists previously, now should show there is a client available. Now how do you connect it? Simple. So first of all, let me get this complete real estate there. So what I'll do is MySQL, no whitelisting, nothing, folks. MySQL h 10.65.192.2 minus u minus p demo GCP. I'm there, folks. I'm there. I'm connected without any whitelisting, no proxy. I'm just using a virtual machine connected through. That's it. So now I can store the databases. The database is there. You want to delete a database, delete it. or you want to use a specific database like world, whatever you did, you are able to do it in from your virtual machine also without any whitelisting or anything. So select star from city, same thing, limit 10. Everything works and works in a more secure manner. And my client is in some other region altogether. I can still connect. That's another important thing. So I can connect from anywhere. As long as I'm in the same network, I'm all good. So this is how you can connect, folks. Using internal IP address, you need a host, a jump host or a bastion host, whatever you want to call. So instance in the same this thing, you should be able to then connect it. Um, and when I worked in one of the organizations, right, they were very strict. So they wanted a Cloud SQL instance with internal IP only, and they wanted the developers who are in the office to connect to this with internal IP only. So I had to find out a solution. So I used a concept called as port forwarding, and there's a demo in my YouTube channel also. If you just search for corporate, you should get that video. If you are interested, you can look into it, folks. I'll just show you that video. That was really a very handy option. It took time to do it, and it was only one single command. So if you just search for from a corporate or we from a secure place, how do I connect it? If you search for corporate, uh, you see this. How to connect Cloud SQL with a private IP only from on-premise, corporate, or home Wi-Fi. How do you do it? If you're interested, you can look into this video for more stuff. So it's going to be a small port forwarding concept which I used. Basically, what we did, exactly the same thing is going to be there. But from my on-premise, I'm just going to do a SSH to what? I will SSH to my virtual machine, and there's going to be a connection existing. So from there, I will do it. So still I need a bastion host uh, there also. So instance should be always running. That's the key part here. Okay. So hope that concept is clear, folks. And just for your information, if you're not running your Cloud SQL instance, you can stop it. Tomorrow you want to run it, you can go and start it. And the IPs which it is going to create are always going to be static IPs. Whether it's public IP or private, both are going to be static. So tomorrow when you start it again, it's going to have the same IP. So that is something on Cloud SQL which I wanted to show. Before I proceed further, I will delete this. I will also delete my virtual machine. So that's something on Cloud SQL, folks. We have covered a good amount of stuffs. The cross read replica, I would say, is something very important, at least for your real implementations. I have seen some official materials. I don't see the official material has this part. You can check if you have access. If you are working in an organization which has access to some official materials of Google, the official training materials, you can see they'll not even mention this. So this is just to indicate that we actually look into both the exam perspective and also the real implementation perspective, just to highlight that part. Okay. Now moving on to the next part. If you have a requirement of some other databases, for example, SAP HANA, IBM DB2, something of that sort, Google does not provide you an out-of-the-box solution for those things. So you cannot have a managed version of it. So where they provide you something of that sort. So in this case, you're going to rely on your virtual machines. You're going to rely on your virtual machines where these softwares, SAP HANA, SAP SAE, or IBM DB2, you need to install it on a virtual machine. So then it becomes an unmanaged service because you have to manage your operating system. You have to manage SAP HANA, patch it, back it up, upgrade it. You have to do it everything. So that's the reason it's unmanaged. So, but it is still possible. It is still possible. And you can just go to your marketplace, search for SAP HANA, you should get it. You can deploy it on a virtual machine. Let me just show you that. So if I go to marketplace, search for SAP, and Google and SAP has a very great working relationship, folks. SAP HANA. You see this SAP. You can bring your own license, or maybe you can also use a free edition. There is some free editions which I have seen. Or let me just search for SAP, folks. I'm not from SAP background, but I'm just seeing this. A database at the end. That's it. Uh, uh, yeah, this one. Where you run it on a virtual machine. You run it on a virtual machine, launch it. It's going to launch on a virtual machine. And what's going to be the cost? The cost is going to be this much. The cost is going to be this much. N1 standard. There's going to be some license usage because it's a licensed product. So there's going to be some license usage, or if you're using SUSE Linux, for that, the usage is going to be this much. So it's going to be like 10,000 Indian rupee. But possibilities are there to run database like this. So SAP related stuffs. But if you look for IBM DB2, you don't get an option. You don't get an option in your marketplace. Sorry. You don't going to get an option. Okay, DB2. Is it really DB2 or something else it is searching? No, it is something else. It is something else. So if you don't get this kind of an option, no problem. Just go install a virtual machine, get the downloads of your IBM DB2, install it. That is also possible. So, but prefer to see whether there's a database already available. For example, MongoDB, a NoSQL database. You get an option like this in your marketplace. Try to avoid any installation, folks. That's the key message. If there is a marketplace offering, prefer to use it. Only if you don't have any other offerings in GCP, then you have to go install it on a virtual machine. The last fallback option. Is that making sense? Is it clear, folks? If you have such requirement, you want to install a database which is not supported, first go to your marketplace. It may be there. Most of the time it may be there. Some situations like IBM DB2 or something else will not be there. Then you have to install it on your virtual machine. Okay, so that's the option. Now, any questions on this, folks, till now? Any questions, folks? Is this till now it's clear? No response, I'll take it to my advantage. That's it. Okay, thank you for the confirmation, Mangesh. So that's good. We covered most of the stuffs except the most important thing, Oracle. What about if I have a Oracle database in my on-premise or maybe in some other cloud? I want to move to GCP. What are the options? First, rule of thumb, there is no direct offering in Google Cloud for Oracle support. They don't support it. I can show you a documentation slightly older, but still from a reliable source. So it's in the bookmarks. You can look into the bookmarks, folks. So let me put the information in the chat. It's already there in the bookmark. You can refer to it. If you want to see quickly, you can look into this one. So this is, look at the URL. It is oracle.com, official material, licensing Oracle software in cloud computing. The approved vendors are who? AWS EC2, which is nothing but on AWS virtual machines. RDS, which is nothing but your relational database service, similar to our cloud SQL offerings. And Azure. Only two cloud providers are the official providers, at least as per this documentation. So Google is not there. Google is not there. So it is not a straightforward solution whenever it comes to Oracle. It's always a workaround solution in GCP. One possible reason is these things. The way the licensing works in Oracle. Two vCPUs equivalent to one Oracle processor license if hyperthreading is enabled. It could be because of this, or maybe Google is not even thinking of having a support for various reasons. I'm not sure, but it is not there. Then what are the workaround options? The first workaround option is basically if they say no, I want Oracle at any cost in GCP, then you can use something called as Oracle on bare metals. Oracle on bare metals. So what you do is basically uh, from last year it is started, I guess, if I'm not wrong, this offering, but very less information available in internet. This is one of the screenshots which I got from internet only, so from the blog of Google. So you have your applications running, your virtual machine, GKE, blah blah blah. You have a co-location facility, a data center very close to your region, where Google is going to run bare metals, not uh, virtualized systems. It's a bare metal where directly on the bare metals, they are going to run apps which requires bare metals only, or license tied to a physical cores, or to a physical like something which is relying on bare metals. So you can have apps like this. Now you have a connectivity between your co-location facility and your region. Then you should be able to have your Oracle running as is. This is the first and straightforward option, but it is still not fully mature enough. So you may not, say for example, if it's an Asian customer somewhere in Australia, India, Singapore, or Taiwan, you may not get this option fully, if I'm not wrong. Currently it is in US parts, an expensive solution also, because in networking we are going to look into this, where you see something interconnect, it's going to be little heavy, the price is going to be heavy. Seems no one you will use Oracle in future, everyone is looking for open source. This could be the possible thing also, Vivek. That's another reason. So because thanks for bringing in, many people, many organizations use Oracle for two reasons only. So only for two reasons only. The reason is either they like Oracle too much, or the second category of people is they don't know how to come out of this vendor lock-in, the Oracle lock. They don't know how to come out of it. So that is the main two set of peoples which you have. Maybe because Google is an open cloud, they want to promote products which are more open. That's could be the one of the reasons. Just curious, in banking many use Oracle and IBM too. In my company all the transactions are on IBM too. Is it really Google lagging there? Could be, Mangesh. I totally agree with respect to the database. If you remember on last Saturday when we started the database options, I told it very clearly, you cannot compare AWS Azure's offering with GCP. GCP is really lagging with the database offering. I totally agree it, because only three database. You just look into your AWS offering. They provide IBM too. They provide Oracle. Straightforward option. But GCP is lagging due to various reasons. One of the reasons which I think is they have a proprietary database called as Spanner. They wanted to position that. It could be because of that, or they have some other plans in mind, or it could be they wanted to focus everything to open source, have MySQL or Postgres. That could be the reason. But I totally go with what you mentioned. They are lagging with the database support. This is the first option, folks. Oracle on bare metal. The second option which you can do is you have lots of free tools available in the market. Aura to PG. If you just search, you will get it. It's a free tool. I'm not sure whether it's open source. It's a free tool at least. Aura to PG. You install this. What you can do is basically migrate all your Oracle details, the schema, tables, all those things into Postgres. What I have seen in my experience, Oracle to Postgres migration works very well. Now, if it is Postgres migration, what does this has to do, folks? On-premise Oracle, you use this tool, move it to Postgres. So if it's in Postgres, you can use Cloud SQL for Postgres, right? That is the whole intent. So if I just go to my SQL, if I go to my SQL, you see this Postgres. Now it's going to be a managed service. But the only thing is that there's going to be a DBA who needs to be involved in this database migration. So in the database migration, so this is another option, free tools, meaning you migrate from Oracle to some open source database like Postgres. Second option. The third option, if you say no, because it's a free tool, definitely it's going to have some limitations. One of the limitations which I know is if in Oracle, if you have a stored procedure written in PLSQL, you cannot convert it fully. Triggers are not going to be supported. So to some, there's going to be some limitations. So if you want to avoid those limitations, use a product like this, a paid service, uh, click replicate, quick replicate. So quick, actually this was an Attunity product, quick acquired Attunity. So you can use something called as quick replicate. If you search, you get an option where you can migrate your on-prem data Oracle to any format, to Postgres, MySQL, whatever. So it's just a user interface or UI based. You can also use change data, CDC also, change data capture. You can do lots of stuffs, but it's a paid service. Now, these are the three options which you have with Oracle, folks. Either use bare metal or use some free tools or a paid tool. But it's not a straightforward option. It's not a straightforward option, basically. Remember that. And if anybody asks you any questions on Oracle with respect to GCP context, set the context that it is not supported, but there are workaround solutions. Workaround solutions. I'm not sure whether this is going to change in the future, but as of today, this is the stand which Google takes. Now we have 5 minutes. Maybe I can stop it here for any questions. Tomorrow we'll start with that time to think option. So we'll think of that question tomorrow. Let me stop it here, folks. Any questions related to today's topic first? After that, anything, any outside topics if you want to discuss.
Yeah,
Any
Mangesh,
questions
Mangesh
on?
here.
Yeah, Mangesh.
Actually, yeah, I mean, on the same point, actually, I mean, many banking organization, right? I mean, they are rely on Oracle or IBM DB2. Okay, so I mean, GCP really need to think on that actually to have some managed service for
Yes.
IBM and yeah, Oracle.
Yeah.
Because for security wise, right, the IBM DB2, I mean, it's really good product actually, though it is costly. But security wise and performance wise, I mean, we are using that. I mean, daily we are processing huge data actually in our yeah. So to process that huge number of data on a daily basis, yeah, the IBM DB2 is really good actually.
Totally agree. No even second thoughts there, Mangesh. I totally agree that. Not sure when it is going to come, or it may not even
Yeah.
come in the future. So, but your point is valid. Many people have that concern, basically. Many people have that, but in your AWS, they support IBM DB2 is there, Oracle is there. It's fully managed, like how we did with our MySQL. It's going to be the same approach which you're going to do here also. So you see, Oracle is there. IBM DB2 is also there, if I'm not wrong. Anybody who used AWS can connect, but I see there is an option for IBM DB2 also. But in GCP, yes, it lacks. It lacks. So whenever it comes, maybe what you can do is the maximum, at least for now, Mangesh, if such kind of stuff comes. Now let's take your own organization, a banking stuff, where they want to migrate it. Only what you can do is the on-prem stuff, just retain your database. Remaining everything you migrate to GCP. That's the only option which I can think of now.
Yeah, I mean, we have another team. What we do, I mean, currently we are working on we just started on working GCP. So what we are doing, there is one dedicated team in HSBC, that is we call it Juniper team. So what I mean, they are helping us to migrate the data onto the GCP. I mean, they are migrating. They have some inbuilt script which will migrate the data onto the GCP storage, and then currently we are working on that. I mean, we are
So
doing.
what database
We
you're
have
going to
started.
use? What database you're going to use? You have to use either one of the one which is there, MySQL, Postgres, Microsoft SQL Server, because that's the only
I
thing
mean,
available. If you
so I mean, what we are doing, all the reportings will be done in the ClickSense. Okay. So the
click sense.
ClickSense has a direct connection to the GCS cloud
Okay,
storage,
Google Cloud
and
Storage bucket. Okay.
yeah, and then from there, Click is connecting to the GCS, and then we are working on that reporting part.
So only for reporting
So
purpose you are doing it. Only the reporting
yes,
part is from Google Cloud Storage.
yep.
Got it. Valuable information. Yeah. So you maybe also look into Click Replicate. If you have already clicked, maybe Click Replicate could be a one which you can look for. Think about it. It could be one possible thing. Yeah. Good. Thanks, Mangesh, for sharing that info. The Click Sense with Google Cloud Storage was something new for me. I never explored that. That's a good one.
I mean, the POC was, I mean, HSBC is doing POC since long because they are considering a lot of security concerns over GCP, and they finally agreed that they will start something on GCP.
And they are one of the customers, very large customers, if I'm not wrong. They say have some good amount of workload on GCP. So even in your GCP customers website, if you see HSBC is going to be shown there as one of the major banks who are using GCP very heavily. ICICI is also using GCP, if I'm not wrong. PayPal is using GCP. A few constraints may be there. So yeah, that's going to be handled by the sales, all those, or actually by the Googlers. We don't need to worry about it. Yeah. But totally agree, the database wise, it's lagging. It may change in the future, but not sure when.
Thank you, Mish.
Yeah.